which will be next Sunday under the topic Women in Digital Transformation of the Americas. This session was convened at the request of the delegations of Bolivia, Brazil, Canada, Chile, Colombia, Costa Rica, Guatemala, Mexico, Panama, Dominican Republic, and Uruguay in terms of subparagraph B of document 7 of the Permanent Council. In keeping with what is set forth in Article 43, I put to your consideration the draft order of business contained in document CP-INF 10852 of the year 2026. CPOD 2582. No objections, it is so approved. Before proceeding, I'd like to ask the Council if exceptionally they would provide dispensation for Article 46 of the Rules of Regulation at the request of Grenada to allow 8 minutes of a statement for the Minister of Social Development and Community Development, Housing and Gender Issues from Grenada, who will accompany us at this session virtually. I hear no objections. It is so agreed.
Estimada
Distinguished representatives of member states, Mr. Secretary General, Madam Assistant Secretary General, distinguished permanent observers, ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor to welcome to this extraordinary session of the Permanent Council to commemorate International Women's Day under the topic Women in the Digital Transformation of the Americas, which is the topic of discussion today. We come together at a decisive time, historically speaking, for women. Digital transformation opened unprecedented opportunities for regional prosperity, innovation, and social inclusion. But it also created new risks and challenges which could deepen structural inequalities and reproduce gender-based violence in digital environments. Digital violence against women, girls, and teenagers is a contemporary form of gender-based violence, which is incompatible with the commitments undertaken by member systems in the Inter-American system. Abuse, harassment, hate speech, and intimate content are a violation of basic rights of dignity, privacy, and freedom of expression. Moreover, it limits the democratic participation of women. When women are attacked, or when they are excluded from digital spaces, their leadership is limited and their participation in decision-making is also restricted. In the case of girls and teenagers, that risk is exacerbated and affects their integral development and impacts their possibility of living free of violence. In the context of the OAS and the Inter-American Commission on Women, we have underscored the importance of promoting full and safe participation of women in science, technology, and innovation as a factor that would contribute to the strengthening of democracy, sustainable development, and multidimensional security. In that context, promoting more safe and inclusive technological environments is a shared responsibility of all states. However, there continue to be significant gaps which limit women's leadership and an alarming expansion of digital violence. That reality demands that we take coordinated, sustained action that would include prevention, protection, access to justice, capacity building, and regional cooperation in keeping with the mandate set forth by this organization. Thus, this session should not be confined only to the commemoration of the day. It should be a moment to think about action, to contribute to identifying good practices, strengthen normative frameworks, and make headway in concrete commitments that would guarantee that the digital ecosystems of the Americas be inclusive, safe, and respectful of human rights. On this International Women's Day, we reaffirm our commitment to the full participation, significant participation, and safe participation of women in all arenas, with equal opportunity and with digital transformation, which would leave no one behind. Finally, I would like to recognize and celebrate the leadership of our permanent representatives, interim representatives, and alternates, the Assistant Secretary General, permanent observers, and the Inter-American Commission of Women. Their work has been key in order to position gender equality and digital safety as hemispheric priorities. I would like to thank delegations that proposed this session, and I trust that this dialogue will drive the adoption of concrete measures to strengthen effective implementation of inter-American commitments. This space can then serve as one for decisive action to guarantee the full, safe, and inclusive participation of women in all arena of public life, political life, economic life, and technology in our Americas. Thank you. And I now will begin the commemoration of International Women's Day, and we will give the floor to women. And with a view to that, I have the pleasure of welcoming Madam Alejandra Mora Mora, Executive Secretary of the Inter-American Commission of Women. Madam Mora Mora, you are most welcome, and you have the floor, ma'am.
Okay. Muy buenos días.
Good morning, one and all. Thank you very much, Chair. First, I'd like to thank you for convening this council and for the introductory remarks, which are so important in the celebration of this day. I would like to extend greetings to the Assistant Secretary General, Doña Laura Gil, and to the three women who will be intervening on behalf of the Inter-American Women's Commission, the AI, and OSF. And I'd like to welcome delegations, colleagues, and an enormous greeting to all women. What we mean in the world, for our strength, our courage, to be turning the other cheek and to continue making headway in the area of equality. If I may, I'd like to begin by looking at the departure points for the Americas in the area of digital transformation, and then what we were asked to do and what we are doing is to look at the process whereby we can continue deepening our work and working together. Digital transformation driven by artificial intelligence, cloud computing, online commerce, social platforms, and media are not horizons, but rather they're here now, and they impact all areas of our life in society. This situation means that everyone needs to be part of these and use these tools, both economically, politically, in work, and personally. And in parallel to that, we see increasing demand for specialists in this area to design architectures that support and continue innovating in finding new solutions. In this new era of digital transformation, there are a series of gaps to fill and challenges in the area of human rights for women. There are gaps in access and the use of internet in a number of countries. There are substantial differences between men and women in this regard. We also observe undermining of women using internet, less competency, digital, and less trust of these tools. And this is not a coincidence due to the issue of cyber violence. When women have fewer opportunities for digital training and concerns about their privacy, that then means that there is less participation of women in digital arena. Women's participation in engineering, computing, and especially in artificial intelligence and cybersecurity is a 3-to-1 ratio. That then leads to a situation where systems do not include women's perspective and diversity. The consequence of this is what we call a blind spot in a world where more and more decisions are taken with data in the digital space without taking into account huge segments of the population. So these decisions are blind and apparently are exhaustive and objective. Notwithstanding that, the Inter-American Commission on Women also surveyed women in 9 countries, conducted research into what's being addressed. They talked about cyber harassment attacks, coordinated attacks, in a number of different attacks, stealing data and attacks on websites. These sites try to silence the voice of women and question the public agenda. There has been a warning issued about the situation of violence against the activists and defenders of women's rights. Politically speaking, we have seen campaigns of harassment, hate speech, and deep states that undermine the credibility of women. But it's not just limited to women, but it also affects the quality of democracy. Disinformation about gender is not a simple mistake. It's a coordinated strategy, expanded algorithmically, that exploits sexist stereotypes in order to limit women's right to participate, influence, and govern. When a woman abandons politics or does not speak in digital arenas because she's afraid, she is not alone to lose, but the whole democracy loses in terms of diversity, plurality, and legitimacy. There are challenges. In addition to what I've mentioned, there are also opportunities. For us, digitalization opens opportunities specifically to broaden the presence of women in digital ecosystems, to drive innovation, better ethic design, including using AI, and it can impact the quality of the algorithms. We see that the participation of women in information technologies drives economic growth and productivity. Moreover, women are using tools to promote entrepreneurship, and this is often led by women. Also to access to digital finances, to promote and strengthen cyber security. That's why it's important to close the gaps, accelerate access to public services, and provide for systems of protection. The use of the internet by women is also one that expands job opportunities remotely, reduces red tape, facilitates digital trade, and access to information and mentorships. Closing the gender gap on the internet would add $700 billion to the world GDP. That's why it's important. First, in political rights, we must include all the use of technologies and technology security in campaigns and in the systems of transfer of knowledge that we do in our training for electoral candidates. We started investigation on the impact of AI on inequality and algorithm inequality on political rights to continue deepening our understanding and finding new opportunities to make recommendations to states. In 2026, we have a campaign underway for collecting all regional best practices and to show how we can benefit all equality policies, to see it as a positive topic that increases opportunity for political rights of women. With the support of the Government of Canada, we developed a practical guide to respond to gender disinformation that we'll be presenting soon. We also included topics of cyber activism and disinformation in the women's strategic boot camps that took place in Dominican Republic and Guatemala and that we'll be holding soon in Panama. Based on a survey being conducted, we developed with SIGTE a course on cybersecurity with a gender focus and protection of the integrity of information, in addition to the document that we had crafted in order to provide literacy for women and girls and to identify the risks when they are navigating on the internet. The task force, Inter-American Task Force on Women, is compiling data on blind spots and gaps in the area of digital transformation in order to continue providing data on what works and what's happening in this area and the implications of that. Economically, we are driving investigation on digital rights, existing rights, to strengthen the legal frameworks. This investigation will provide input in order to promote digital inclusion in the area of violence, gender-based violence. During the 5th Conference of States Parties, which was held in Brazil, we approved the Declaration on Democracy and Climate Change and Gender. We also approved the Inter-American document to eradicate and sanction gender-based violence, which promotes integral solutions with regulation of the intermediaries, such as platforms, which we think is very important, through criminal, electoral, and public sanctions. Democratization of the benefits of digital transformation means rethinking massive ownership of this asset that belongs to all humankind. And recently I was in an event, Mr. Chairman, I was mentioning this, and we suggested it as a topic. And if I may, I'd just like to stress this. It means broadening rights and expanding opportunities to those who have the least access, and digital inclusion for women is a strategic issue and a condition for a more prosperous society which is truly democratic. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Moramora. We'd like to thank you for the presentation and participation and for the work that you are doing at the helm of the Inter-American Commission of Women in favor of equality and empowerment of women. Now, it's my pleasure to greet and give the floor to Commissioner Marian Bethel, Rapporteur on the Rights of Women of the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights. Commissioner Bethel, welcome, and you have the floor, ma'am.
Other speakers, Alejandra Mora, Maria Celeste Puenmayor, and Sahana Dapumbur. The Commission appreciates the invitation to this special session to commemorate International Women's Day. It is an honor to share this space with such a distinguished panel of women. We have seen the transformative power of technology in women's lives. The digital space has opened new paths to confront old problems. It has offered fresh perspectives and new tools, especially when it has been designed and used ethically and responsibly. For instance, in terms of health, digital platforms and mobile applications are expanding women's access to information, services, and care, even in remote areas. In education, large-scale initiatives across the regions have used universal device distribution and connectivity to close the digital divide. And in matters of security, technology has enabled survivors of gender-based violence to seek help through mobile apps and public panic buttons for faster response and protection. However, this same space has become a new domain for continued discrimination and violence against women. What was meant to connect us has, in many cases, been used to intimidate and silence. In the region, at least 73% of women have experienced some form of online violence. Some face online harassment, cyber stalking, doxing, and technology facilitated abuse by intimate partners, including the monitoring of their devices and tracking of their location. They are also subjected to sexual violence in digital forms, including the non consensual sharing of intimate images, manipulated deepfakes, AI generated sexual content, and online exploitation and grooming. Much of this abuse takes place on privately owned platforms like social media companies, messaging services, dating apps, and websites where data is not always accessible. This context creates an environment in which women are effectively pushed out of digital spaces. The persistence of gender stereotypes, whether in the design of an app, in online gaming communities, or in everyday interactions, sends a subtle but powerful message. Women do not belong here. And over time, that message limits women's equal participation online, hindering their exercise of other rights. As we are witnessing, the digital world is evolving at extraordinary speed, and our institutions appear to be struggling to keep pace. Yet the principles and standards already established remain applicable. Let me highlight three key standards that must guide our efforts to protect women's rights. The Inter-American Standards. First, the right of women, girls, and adolescents to live a life free from violence and discrimination, and the general duty to guarantee rights compels states to organize their entire institutional framework to prevent, investigate, punish, and repair gender-based violence, including when it occurs online. This entails updating and harmonizing legal frameworks on the prevention and punishment of violence against women so that states can fully address digital gender-based violence in all its forms. Moreover, when drafting laws and policies, states must recognize that the digital sphere is not a neutral space. Those who face intersecting forms of inequality, including young girls and adolescents, human rights defenders, women with disabilities, Indigenous, Afro-descendant and rural women, and LGBTI persons are at greater risk of digital harm. Secondly, particularly where legal reform is not immediate, states must apply a gender perspective when assessing all forms of online aggression and attacks, even when these offenses are drafted in gender-neutral terms. Recognizing the gendered impact of digital harm is essential to ensure that laws are interpreted and enforced in a way that truly protects women. Third, under the Convention of Belém do Pará, the state's heightened duty of due diligence requires the design and implementation of precautionary judicial remedies that are simple, swift, and accessible, capable of providing timely and effective protection against digital violence. These mechanisms should prevent further harm and safeguard women from re-victimization both online and offline. At the same time, we must confront a paradox. While technology has enabled us to map and track other forms of violence, such as femicide, reliable data on digital violence remains scarce. Nonetheless, states have a clear obligation to ensure the investigation and systematic collection of statistics and relevant information on the causes, prevalence, and consequences of violence against women in the digital sphere. Without solid data, effective policy responses are simply not possible. Ultimately, the success of digital transformation lies not only in innovation, but in its capacity to include everyone. It must fully embrace women in all their diversity and be grounded in a safe and healthy real world environment, one that ensures sustainable conditions for everyone to participate and thrive. I thank you for this time.
Gracias, comisionada.
Thank you, Commissioner, for your work, your participation, and also for your report. I now have the pleasure to extend greetings to and give the floor to Madam Lucia Velasco. She was the head of AI policy at the United Nations Office for Digital and Emerging Technologies. Madam Velasco, welcome to the Permanent Council, the OAS. You have the floor for 10 minutes.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente. Thank you very much, Chair. Just a few years ago, if someone wanted to analyze a database, a complex one, that person needed to know how to program. If they wanted to automate processes in their small business, they needed an external technical team. And if they wanted to develop a digital tool for their community, they needed years of specialized training. Today, in many instances, what you need to know is how to ask the right question, write a prompt. That is a fundamental change that we are experiencing now, a change that can change everything for women. For a long time, we rightly spoke about bias in technology, the rise of online violence against children and adolescents, and the reproduction of bias in automated systems. A high number of female jobs are exposed to the risk of automation. But we cannot lose focus. We need to be able to protect women from this threat, but also we need to see what we can do to take advantage of this historic opportunity. It is an opportunity to redistribute, to increase productivity, and to redistribute economic power. For decades, the message was very clear. If you want to be part of the tech future, you need to learn how to program. You need to be able to adapt to an ecosystem designed by others, mainly by men. And now, our historically minor representation in STEM was never due to just one cause. It was not due to lack of talent, nor is it just enough to add more women to STEM. You need to overcome expectations that are often different for girls. You need to overcome bias. You need to overcome work cultures that are often based on male needs. And you also need to deal with systems that treat women as second-class citizens. Of course, there are individuals' decisions, but those don't come out of a vacuum. They are always linked to the opportunities and messages that a society sends to everyone from a very young age. Who should lead versus who should provide care, for instance. The revolution of AI is now starting to change these conditions for entry. For years, we were told that participating in this revolution meant that we had to learn to speak the language of machines. But now, machines are starting to be able to speak and understand our language, and the gap for entry is now different. Skills like context, communication, empathy, creativity, strategic vision are skills that the digital economy has underestimated for far too long, but now they are taking on a new value, and we're starting to see that in the data. The IL also shows that 30% of female jobs are now exposed to automation, generative AI, compared with 20% of jobs for men. And this is often seen as something negative. It's seen as a threat, but it also means that we have an urgent need to take another look at leadership, because there are other studies that have been carrying out experiments. MIT and Stanford have found that these tools increase productivity by nearly 14% on average, or even 35% for less experienced staff. So this is not just affecting people who have a great deal of technical knowledge, it's affecting people with less technical knowledge. Nearly 90% or rather, we still need experts, but if we are able to take other measures, we can redistribute that work. Women aren't arriving late. They are arriving and trying to accelerate their access to this area. But there are still things that we cannot accept. It is, or rather, when technology is becoming more accessible through our phones and our businesses and public policies, we see more absences in the spaces where decisions about governance are made. In recent years, this is getting worse across the board, even in areas where I work myself at the UN. It's not enough to be users. We need to be architects, entrepreneurs, and decision makers. Because if women only use AI that others design, then history is bound to repeat itself. I think there are a few clear things. We need equal participation and equal decision making. No one specific group or committee or panel should be created without a meaningful representation of women. And I bring this up because in recent years, we are seeing once again that we are disappearing from public spaces, from those places where the decisions are made. And that means that there won't be those policies for women and girls in the future. We also need a radical change to training. We are training programmers, scientists, of course, which is great, but we need to also focus on AI literacy for women in non-technical sectors, for civil servants, entrepreneurs, administrative workers. We cannot limit the entry point to those who only have scientific training, because that's not as necessary as it once was. Lastly, SMEs led by women also need access to tools, lending, and other abilities that allow them to bring AI into their businesses so that they can grow. We are approaching a major opportunity, and technology is moving in a direction where we are enabled to participate more in these institutions. Let's not miss this opportunity. We need to protect women from risks, but we need to go farther. We need to use AI to expand women's freedom, productivity, leadership, and above all, their ability to be part of society. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Velasco, for that presentation and for sharing your experience and reflections on digital transformation and opportunities for women. To conclude with these initial presentations, we will now hear from Ms. Sahana Dharmapuri from the organization Our Secure Future. Ms. Dharmapuri, welcome to the OAS Permanent Council. You have the floor, madam.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair, Your Excellencies, and distinguished panelists. I really appreciate this opportunity to share our work with you. I want to acknowledge the incredible leadership that the OAS member states have shown on women, peace, and security and national level policies on gender equality. In that vein, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to share our work on women, peace, and security and the digital ecosystem. We have just produced a review of policies from the first Trump administration through Biden administration and the current administration on tech policies using a women, peace, and security lens. And we will share the QR code for the report and also a women, peace, and security AI tool, which I will be discussing in a moment that we developed. I think we all can acknowledge that today, peace and security are more dependent on algorithms than diplomacy, given the remarks from our distinguished colleagues already that have given us the context of the environment we work in. We are in a once-in-a-lifetime transformation geopolitically. I don't think anyone can argue with the fact that we are witnessing a race for economic and military dominance through the push for the development of these technologies. And one of the things that we did is using the women, peace, and security lens on these national security issues and international peace and security issues, it showed us some very interesting things. First, we see two factors that are push factors in this environment. One is speed, and the other is funding. There is a press to develop this technology in a very compressed time frame without questioning how it's being developed and if it's effective. And there's a massive amount of funding going towards this race from the military sector. As we reviewed these policies, this is really from a U.S. Perspective on our foreign policy, national defense policy, from President Trump's first term to President Biden's term to the current administration. What we see is that there is a consistent focus on geopolitical and economic competition, leveraging tech for warfighting dominance. And the rise of tech companies, they are becoming more and more influential actors. And in this environment, we see, as many of the previous speakers have said, women being left out of the decision-making on the whole ecosystem. And when we apply this women to peace and security lens, we find that women are asking, who is making these decisions? Who is designing these technologies and this whole technological ecosystem? And who is left out? And usually, those questions are not being asked by the defense or the tech sector. It is women in civil society that are raising these questions and that are also coming up with very innovative technological solutions and answers to those problems. Especially, I would say, the realization that women point out, which is not also being talked about very much, is that amid this growing alliance between the defense and tech sectors, there's very little attention being paid to the links between technology, instability, and conflict, particularly in policy development and policy framework development. Nor are all of those factors being taken into account on the impact on human security broadly in a national security and defense security context, especially regarding the treatment of women. And we see that as an example, other speakers have mentioned, as the treatment of women online. We think that this can serve as an indicator of violence and broader insecurity geopolitically, not just a women's issue. There are two areas that I wanted to point out as examples that we found in both governance implications and hard security implications. Many have talked and referred to technologically facilitated gender-based violence as a very big problem, and it certainly is. But what does that mean for governance practices? Well, we found that gender disinformation's impact on governance with the Women, Peace, and Security analysis helps us to understand that we can analyze these attacks, these gendered disinformation attacks, as tactics used by foreign state actors and non-state actors to spread disinformation with the purpose of deliberately polarizing populations and undermining social cohesion. And the ultimate aim, when we see women political candidates being attacked online, isn't about discrediting individual people. It's actually about creating insecurity that destabilizes democracies and challenges our own principles about human rights and our democratic values. A hard security example that we saw in cybersecurity, infrastructure, financial systems, and communications, we see some of the most critical challenges with the deployment of AI in conflict zones. And that relates to insufficient or faulty training data in the AI system itself, hallucinations, meaning wrong information that the AI system provides when you ask it questions, lack of transparency of how these data sets have been created, and we have to remember that when AI tools are being used in conflict zones or high-pressure security environments, people are operating in very compressed decision timelines. And in conflict environments, there's a real pressure for quick decision-making. This can contribute to overconfidence and over-reliance in AI assessments and AI recommendations without human judgment or human intervention. Even military analysts agree with women, peace, and security actors on this point. They have pointed to the importance of human judgment in conflict situations. So I think what women are pointing out is that while these things are developing so rapidly, we need to be involved in the decision-making on these technologies and how they're developed, and that we have agency to do so. And most of all, we really don't fully understand the long-term effects of what we're developing because of the absence of the participation from civil society, women's leaders, and even, I would say, some policymakers and security actors. We don't quite understand how data is being gathered, what data is being used and privileged and being included in these AI models. So I do want to share one thing that we developed in response to these findings. We created a Women, Peace, and Security AI tool that is actually informed by the data sets from Women, Peace, and Security on operational effectiveness in security operations, national level policies on women, peace, and security, including all the national action plans on women, peace, and security that have been produced for the last 25 years, and also organizational, I would say, national security actors or international security actors, policy frameworks and commitments to international human rights and gender equality and women's rights. And what we did is we produced this tool, which we are going to demonstrate later during lunch, and this is just a screenshot of what the tool looks like, where you can actually, it's a curated data set, a curated LLM, which you can test, and it demonstrates that this curated data set actually produces much more comprehensive and nuanced results when asking about how to address security problems in conflict zones. So we will provide the demonstration after this, and you'll be able to test it out. We also have a Spanish language version and an English language version. So thank you very much. These are the QR codes to the report and to the AI tool, should you be interested in testing it out. Thank you.
Gracias.
Thank you very much, Ms. Dharmapuri, for your participation today and for sharing with the Permanent Council the work of our Secure Future in promoting women's participation in decision-making. We will now hear from member states, and with the delegation's indulgence, I would first like to offer the floor to Senator Gloria Thomas, Minister of Social and Community Development, Housing and Gender Matters from Grenada, who is joining us virtually. Minister, welcome. You now have the floor.
Thank you, moderator, distinguished panelists, other distinguished persons on this discussion. Pleasant good morning to all. I am indeed grateful to be part of this important conversation, and I'm happy to be here to share in this discourse. As we look towards our International Women's Day soon to come, 2026, under the theme Women in the Digital Transformation of the Americas. We recognize and we know that across the Americas, digital transformation is changing how people work, how they learn, and participate in society. For women and girls, access to technology and digital skills can open doors to education, entrepreneurship, and leadership. And so we embrace digital transformation. In Grenada, we have been making efforts to include women in the digital economy and have steadily gained attention as the country expands its technological infrastructure and digital services. One of the most important steps in digital transformation is ensuring that women and girls have the skills needed to participate. In Grenada, digital literacy programs have been introduced in schools and community initiatives to help young women develop basic ICT skills. Because we speak so much about the digital transformation, we speak more, so much more about getting into the digital space, and our women and girls are left behind because they are not afforded the opportunity to inculcate those skills and to grasp the concept and to be part of the whole transformation that we speak about. So, to ensure that our women and girls could participate and are in the mainstream of things, we have started digital literacy in schools and we do some at the community level. Government agencies, school, and local organizations have worked to introduce coding, computer literacy, and online learning tools in classrooms. We are preparing our young women to step into that space and to be so effective when they have to function there. The Grenada Ministry of Education has supported integrating technology into education, helping girls gain early exposure to digital tools that are increasingly required in modern careers. The community training programs also target women, young women who have not had earlier access to technology. These workshops focus on practical skills such as online communication, digital marketing, and the use of productivity software. Women in, who are involved in entrepreneurship, small businesses, digital transformation is also creating new opportunity for these women's entrepreneurs in Grenada. With access to online platforms, women can market their products, offer services remotely, and reach customers beyond the island. It gives them greater scope. It gives them greater opportunity. It gives them the exposure to grow their business, to build their business, and see greater profits. It expands the market and their customer base. Programs supported by the Grenada Investment Development Corporation and other partners have encouraged women's owned businesses to adopt digital tools such as e commerce platforms, social media marketing, and online payment systems. These tools help small businesses grow while reducing some of the traditional barriers to entry. Women led businesses in areas such as tourism services, creative industry, and small retail have increasingly used digital platforms to connect with regional and international markets. Grenada Progress has also been supported by regional cooperation. No man is an island and no man can do it alone. So the to realize success, we have reached out to regional bodies and corporations. Organizations like the Organization of American States promote programs that strengthen digital skills, cybersecurity awareness, and technology education across the America. Through the partnership with regional organizations, Grenada have participated in initiatives that support women in STEM fields, digital entrepreneurship training, and technological policy development. These collaborations help small states share resources, training, materials, and best practices to close the digital gender gap. With all these developments and all this opportunity for all women, we recognize that the same digital space our women are sometimes used in a negative way, where women are stalked, they are harassed online, and we have some challenges with the emergence of the digital platforms and the digital way of digital transformation. And so we have trained our women to recognize when those instances are happening and how to respond. We have set up a hotline to ensure that we can initiate and facilitate timely response to GBV or harassment when those instances occur. So, despite the progress, challenges remain. Access to high speed internet and advanced digital training can still be uneven, particularly in rural communities. Some women also face the financial barrier when trying to obtain devices or to start digital businesses. And this is something that we have to look at and something that we have to support our women in to give them an equal opportunity to hold their own in the digital world. Another challenge is encouraging more girls to pursue career in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Girls and women in generally and women generally are made to feel that this area is for male. It is a male dominated area and it must remain that way. And this is quite a challenge for our women. They are not given an equal chance to enter in that space. And so this is one of the gaps that we must address. This is one of the areas we must focus on if we want to enhance our women's opportunity and enhance their chance of doing well in that space. So while participation is improving, women remain underrepresented in many technological related professions. And this is serious. This is serious because our women continue to remain behind, they continue to be disadvantaged, and they continue to be marginalized. So we have to continue to advocate for them. We have to continue to provide the opportunity for them, and we have to be a little bit more radical in our approach to getting our women into that space and helping them to really be counted in those non-traditional areas.
Gracias.
Thank you very much, Minister, for your participation today and joining us. I now offer the floor to the Secretary General of the OAS, Ambassador Ramdeen. You have the floor, sir.
Good morning, and Mr. President, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak now. Assistant Secretary General Laura Hill, distinguished permanent representatives, permanent observers, ambassadors, invited guests and presenters, our colleagues from the General Secretariat, and particularly colleagues and Executive Secretary from the Inter-American Commission of Women, SIM. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now a tradition that every March, the Organization of American States joins the international community in recognizing the contributions of women across the hemisphere and beyond. Today, during this special session of the Permanent Council, under the theme, Women in the Digital Transformation of the Americas, we also take the opportunity to reflect and honor the decisive role women play in economic and technological progress, often while navigating persistent structural challenges. I thank the presenters for their perspectives and analysis they have presented. They certainly will be included in the work of the Inter-American Commission of Women and the OAS Secretariats. For the Organization of American States, recognizing that progress means also ensuring that our own organization reflects the values of equality and equity across the hemisphere. One way to do so is to reaffirm our responsibility to foster an environment in which women at all levels can continue to contribute fully to the work and mission of the Organization of American States, because it is largely through the daily effort of women across the full breadth of the General Secretariat, at every level, in every department, and in every mission and program that we serve the people of the Americas. Today, I want to take the opportunity to honor all these women at the OAS for their contribution to the work of this hemispheric body. Women's work sustains the OAS in ways that are sometimes visible and often quiet, shaping ideas into policy, ensuring continuity in administration, supporting dialogue among member states, delivering technical cooperation, and translating our mandates into practical results for our citizens. Their participation strengthens the quality of our service to the member states, improves how we listen and respond, and brings rigor, creativity, and care to the solutions we develop in support of democracy, human rights, security, and integral development. This reflection also comes at a meaningful moment in the life of the organization. In July of 2025, the OAS welcomed Ambassador Laura Gil as Assistant Secretary General, the first woman to serve in that position. This milestone also reflects the broader leadership of women across our hemispheric community. I therefore wish to extend my recognition on behalf of the General Secretariat to the women serving in the permanent missions, whose diplomatic engagement, negotiations, and representation advance both national priorities and the needs of our hemisphere. And I include in this also the many alternate permanent representatives and the representatives of our permanent observer states for their valuable contribution. As our hemisphere continues to navigate profound technological change, the women serving in this organization and in the permanent missions will also play an important role in shaping the dialogue and cooperation needed to ensure that digital transformation in the Americas is inclusive and benefits everyone. Ambassador, colleagues, I call on all of us to recognize the value of the contributions of women in the many functions that keep the Organization of American States as the principal multilateral institution in the Western Hemisphere responsive, and to renew our shared commitment to an institutional culture in which talent can thrive without barriers, without fear, without violence or abuse. More broadly, in this rapidly changing world, I call on us, I urge, in fact, member states, institutions, stakeholders, and citizens across our hemisphere to continue advancing reflection, recognition, and concrete progress towards equality. May this day remind us of the responsibility we share to build a region and a world in which women and men, girls and boys, every single human being, can live up to their aspirations, have the same opportunities, and be recognized for their talents and efforts as we work together to serve the peoples of the Americas with excellence and purpose. I thank you very much and wish you a great day.
Gracias, señor secretario.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary General. I now give the floor to the delegations. Starting with Antigua and Barbuda, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, distinguished colleagues. We live in an era defined by digital transformation. Technology shapes how we govern, how we communicate, how we educate our children, and how we participate in public life. From online voting platforms to digital public services, from social media to artificial intelligence, our democracies are increasingly mediated by technology. Antigua and Barbuda firmly believes that digital transformation must be inclusive if it is to strengthen democracy and development in the Americas. In our Twin Island state, democracy is not powered by software, it is powered by people, and half of those people are women. When women are excluded from digital spaces, from innovation, from leadership, from decision-making, democracy becomes weaker, narrower, and less representative. A digital system that reflects only part of society cannot claim to serve the whole. Yet around the world, across the Americas, women still face significant barriers to digital inclusion. Antigua and Barbuda understands that women are less likely to have access to reliable internet, less likely to receive advanced digital training, less likely to work in technology sectors, less likely to shape algorithms, platforms, and policies that increasingly govern our lives. The consequences are grave because when women are absent from digital design, bias enters the system. When women are excluded from online political spaces, voices are silenced. When women lack digital skills, economic and civic opportunities shrink. And when women are missing from leadership, innovation loses perspective and legitimacy. Colleagues, our work to integrate women into the digital transformation in the Americas is undeniably essential and clear. It is continuing to invest in girls' education in science and technology. It is ensuring affordable and safe access to the internet. It is protecting women from online harassment and abuse and combating technologies that perpetuate gender inequality and stereotypes. Ultimately, it is promoting women's leadership in digital governance. Antigua and Barbuda stands ready to work with member states of the OAS and with our partners across the Americas. We reaffirm the enduring inter-American values of equality, justice, and participation, and we believe that our digital systems must reflect those values. Therefore, we pledge our unwavering support in ensuring that women are at the center of digital transformation and not in the margins. Because without women, digital transformation will not sustain our democracy. And with us women, it can strengthen it for generations to come. I thank you.
Gracias a usted.
Thank you. I now give the floor to the Ambassador of Costa Rica. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, Mr. Secretary General, Madam Assistant Secretary General, distinguished permanent representatives, observers, officials, panelists. Good morning, one and all. We very much appreciate this special session today, and my delegation joined in convening it. And this year, in the context of the OAS, we're invited to think about a crucial topic, women in digital transformation of the Americas. The technological revolution in our region can lead to historical inequalities, or it can become a powerful tool for social inclusion. In that regard, women's leadership facilitates digital transformation becoming more democratic, safe, and truly innovative. Chair, we already know that there are deep-seated gaps in access, training, participation in decision-making spaces, and protection vis-a-vis digital violence. But we also know that when women lead, institutions are strengthened, public policies become more integral, and democracies become more resilient. Costa Rica firmly believes in this transformative leadership. Our country has elected the next president of the Republic, a woman, President Delgado, which is a reflection of this, and our sustained commitment to women and national commitment to equality and substantive parity. Her election is not an isolated event. It is the result of decades of progress in the area of parity, education, economic autonomy, and it is also a clear message for the whole region. Democracy is strengthened when women occupy the highest decision-making positions. And in the multilateral arena, as I've said in other sessions, it's very relevant that in this organization we have the first woman Assistant Secretary General with the highest credentials, and that the world is working towards another historical moment, and that is the upcoming election of the Secretary General of the United Nations. The real possibility that a woman from this region might for the first time take up that responsibility is a powerful signal to send about the direction that global governance should take, one that is more inclusive, more representative, and more aware that peace, sustainable development, and international security all require feminine women's leadership at the highest levels. And in that context, it's my pleasure to point out that yesterday, as I shared with everyone informally, our government presented the candidature of Doña Rebecca Greenspan to be Secretary General of the United Nations for the period of 2027 to 2031. Her career as Vice President of the Republic and extensive experience in the United Nations system and her leadership at the helm of multilateral organizations reflect a combination of political experience, training and ability for dialogue, and talent for multilateralism that the international community needs at this time. In the digital arena, this means there's a women's perspective included in the development of AI, as we heard in the very worthwhile statements made today, in the collection of data, in cybersecurity and technological innovation. It also means guaranteeing that women and girls are not just users of technology, but creators of it, engineers, programmers, and decision makers. It also means eradicating digital violence, which seeks to silence women's voices in the public arena, as Madame Moramora said in her presentation. Also, it's important to promote the interinstitutional strategies that are geared to strengthening digital environments that are more safe for all women, and that would include awareness-raising campaigns on digital citizenship, which is responsible. It also means capacity building to prevent and respond to emerging threats in digital environments. Today, we are not just commemorating a date. Today, we are renewing a commitment. This is a commitment to parity in decision-making, to the economic autonomy of women, and to the full participation of women in the digital economy, and a commitment to their leadership in the building of more peaceful and fair societies. That this session must allow us to move from reflection to action, and the OAS should continue to drive an inter-American agenda where women's leadership would not be the exception to the rule, but the rule. Thank you. Thank you, says the chair. I now give the floor to Uruguay. Thank you, Chair. And at this special commemoration, I'd like to extend greetings to the Secretary General, the Executive Secretary of SIM, and the Assistant Secretary General. Uruguay appreciates the convening of this special session on the role of women in digital transformation of the Americas. This is in the context of the commemoration of the International Women's Day, the 8th of March, which commemorates the fight for equality, substantive equality. Uruguay has developed structural innovation, strengthening of democracy in its digital transformation. However, these processes are not neutral. They are, from the design moment, they need to bear in mind gender equality and human rights. Otherwise, they could further deepen structural gaps that historically have impacted women and girls in all their diversity. The digital gender gap is not just limited to the collective. It's also seen in differences in digital capacity, careers, education, in the technology arena especially, training in technology and strategic technology, business leadership, decision-making, all linked to digital governance. At the same time, women and girls are disproportionately exposed to various forms of violence online and the risks that stem from using emerging technologies that can create discriminatory blind spots if they're not developed with an inclusive perspective in mind. In that regard, for Uruguay, digital transformation has been designed as a long-term state policy. Through our policies and plans, the President, and if I may just refer to this, it's a source of pride for our country, It provides technology, connectivity, and content, which is 100% for girls and boys in public education, primary and secondary education. This technology is provided. Our country drives universalization of access to technology, digital technology in primary education to close economic and social gaps. Here we have the gender focus in the development of AI, promoting principles of transparency, non-discrimination, and accountability in the development use of algorithms. We've also driven programs geared to strengthening girls' and women's participation in STEM and initiatives for training, digital training, aimed at entrepreneur women who are working in rural contexts or in situations of vulnerability. Another key area is economic autonomy of women. Digitalization opens up unprecedented job opportunities, electronic trade, and remote work. However, these opportunities online must be accompanied by public policies that can guarantee work conditions and responsible use, avoiding new forms of weakening that could disproportionately impact women. This is also a key part of the inter-American human rights system for the prevention and eradication of violence against women. This is a key part. In that context, the model law on digital transformation and violence with women is a significant step forward, and it explicitly recognizes this form of violence, gender-based violence in the digital arena, and it establishes standards for state and non-state protection. Uruguay is honored to be the first country to promote this at a national level and to study and discuss implementation of the model law. As part of this process, on the 25th of April, in Montevideo, we had a national dialogue event on the implementation of the Inter-American Model Law on Digital Violence. This was organized by the National Institute of Women, UN Women, UNFA, with participation of state institutions, the academic world, civil society, and international organizations. Sir, digital transformation of the Americas will truly be transformative if it includes women in all their diversity, not as beneficiaries, but rather as protagonists, innovators, and leaders through policies of regional cooperation and sustained commitment to women in the digital transformation. Thank you. Thank you. I now give the floor to Brazil. Thank you, sir. I'd like to start by congratulating the panelists of today for their excellent statements in this context of celebrating the International Day of Women. We believe in this context it's a good moment to think about the main structural thrusts of our times, digital transformation and the place that women occupy in this process. In the current scenario, which is marked by technology ramping up and expansion of artificial intelligence, gender equality necessarily also includes digital inclusion and the effective presence of women in areas of innovation and decision-making. According to a recent edition of the Global Gender Gap Report, which is produced annually by the World Bank, women's participation in technology industries, information, and the media increased, reaching 35%. However, retention of this talent and ongoing progress for their careers continues to abut against obstacles. Women's rising to positions of leadership is a situation which has structural barriers and prevents qualified professionals from reaching executive levels at the highest level. This scenario is particularly acute in areas of STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, where men are significantly more represented than women, and impacts their access to high-level decision-making in STEM. This situation presents a connectivity gap, according to the United Nations. 70% of men use the internet compared to 65% of women. The digital gap is even further exacerbated in low-income countries with adolescents and young people that then undermines their education, career opportunities, economic and political participation. It's also important to recognize at the same time that they have to deal with structural barriers. Women are also the main victims of violence in the virtual arena. As was highlighted in the concept note of this session, up to 58% of women have reported violence online, and 90% of defects are about portraying sexualized women. The Brazilian government has adopted concrete measures in order to combat cyber violence and to promote women's presence and inclusion digitally. In the area of protection, Brazil has strengthened the mechanisms for lodging and receiving complaints at the Center for Women, League 180, which integrates specific protocols for dealing with digital violence. The national policies for women also included guidelines which are geared to preventing and dealing with online violence, stressing training of public agents and interinstitutional coordination of efforts in order to more effectively respond to cybercrime. In the area of digital inclusion, Brazil has been promoting initiatives for connectivity, training, and employability based on the understanding that access to technology is also a way of providing more opportunities for economic inclusion and autonomy of women. The program Computers for Inclusion, which was led by the Ministry of Communication in partnership with the Ministry for Women, promotes access to refurbished equipment and provides technology training and special attention to reduce gender inequalities in terms of access to technology. In addition, we have incentivized women's participation in STEM through grants, digital training, and partnerships with educational institutions and the productive sector, with a focus on broadening the presence of women in high-tech and innovation sectors. The International Day of Women convenes us to make progress in the direction of technology development that's more inclusive, safe, and sustainable, that would strengthen protection of women and trust in digital spaces. We reaffirm that digital transformation must be inclusive, equitable, and geared to rights. Brazil renews its commitment to including the gender perspective in our digital policies. We are convinced that the future of technology in our region will be more innovative, more resilient, and more democratic if it's built using the full participation of women. Thank you.
Muchas gracias por su intervención.
Thank you for that statement. I now give the floor to Paraguay. Thank you very much, sir. The delegation of Paraguay appreciates the convening of this special session of the Permanent Council to commemorate the International Day of Women. We also appreciate the very helpful presentations of the panelists that call us to think about the role of women in digital transformation of our societies. In that context, my delegation would also like to recognize the recent appointment of Ambassador Laura He as Assistant Secretary General of the OAS. She is the first woman to occupy this high position in this organization. This important institutional milestone is a significant step forward in the rights of women in the inter-American system. It is a clear signal sent about the importance of women's leadership in decision-making spheres. Full participation of women in economic life, technology, access to business, trustworthy information, institutions, political life, public debate, all of this allows the development of equality for women. In that regard, the government of Paraguay has been driving initiatives geared to strengthening digital inclusion and equitable access to information technologies and communications. In keeping with the data of the National Institute of Statistics, 79.2% of women in the country use the internet with access levels that are continuing to grow. This reflects significant increases in technology ownership and access. We have policies geared to making sure that digital spaces are safer for women. In this regard, the Ministry of Technology and Information Communications has highlighted implementation of technology tools that help to prevent and fight violence against women. It also strengthens complaint mechanisms, institutional support, and access to support for victims. Also, with a view to promoting understanding of the importance of these technologies, various departments in the countries that are further removed from the capital have access to a platform. Women that are brilliant in the Guarani language It's geared to entrepreneur women and offers them a digital space where they can register, promote, and disseminate information about their products and services. Also, 4 telephone centers have been set up in order to promote literacy, digital literacy for women, for the appropriate use of computers, internet management, navigation, electronic email, and business. There are regional centers in place seeking to provide training for women and communities. This will create job opportunities, quality jobs, and include economic autonomy of women, which is promoted. Sir, these initiatives reflect our conviction that digital transformation needs to be inclusive, safe, and person-centered. It should guarantee that women, girls, and adolescents would have access to opportunities offered by emerging technologies in conditions of equality and without violence. From that point of view, we think it's key to continue strengthening cooperation hemispherically in the context of the OAS. Thus, we can promote safer and inclusive technologies and drive women's participation in STEM based on public policies that close the structural gaps that continue to exist in the digital environment. Paraguay reaffirms its commitment to the promotion of women's rights and to building digital societies that are more fair, resilient, and innovative in our hemisphere. Thank you.
Gracias por su intervención.
Thank you for that statement. I now give the floor to St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, Secretary General, Assistant Secretary General, distinguished permanent representatives and alternates, permanent observers, staff of the Secretariat, guest speakers, good morning. The delegation of St. Vincent and the Grenadines expresses gratitude to the permanent missions for requesting this special meeting of the Permanent Council to commemorate International Women's Day. This delegation also thanks the presenters for their impactful perspectives. Chair, the influence of technology on our lives is undeniable. Yet, for some, access, inclusion, and protection in the digital space remain fraught with challenges. The digital space is vast, yet women's voices and contributions are disproportionately represented. In our efforts to reduce this gap, we must tackle the systemic issues that inhibit women's full participation, such as cybersecurity concerns, online harassment, and the lack of access to digital education for women and girls. Expanding women's access to digital services, especially financial, education, and employment tools, is crucial for economic growth, sustainable development, and an overall balanced environment in which all of us can thrive. Even with the progress made, the region must continue its work in formalizing digital rights to protect women and girls from cyber harassment and discrimination. More training and mentorship programs are needed to encourage and support women and girls in the STEM and digital policy-making fields. Chair, the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines is committed to providing programs and policies for training, financial support, and resources for women and girls to engage in digital transformation and to enact and enforce legislation to protect women and girls online. In 2025, St. Vincent and the Grenadines launched its leg of the CARDTP Cyber Security and Cybercrime Public Awareness Campaign. This initiative brings together key ministries, youth groups, law enforcement, educators, and digital professionals to activate community-driven solutions to cyber threats. One of the main campaigns is the Save Her Online campaign, which provides targeted education and resources to combat cyber violence against women and girls. The government has set as a primary goal the establishment of a national innovation hub as an incubator for entrepreneurship, providing its citizens with high-demand ICT certifications. It also aims to provide startup capital through the National Development Bank for digital entrepreneurs. Initiatives like these are key to advancing sustainable technological development and promoting women's entrepreneurship and leadership. through the Economically Empowered Women for Equitable and Resilient Societies Women Economic Empowerment Project by the OAS's Executive Secretariat for Integral Development in collaboration with St. Vincent and the Grenadines' Center for Enterprise Development. Women-owned businesses benefited from aid to assist them in participating in the digital economy. In closing, Chair, my delegation recognizes the progress made throughout the Americas on women's digital rights. However, our collective efforts must continue to focus on dismantling the challenges facing women in this sphere. St. Vincent and the Grenadines believes that through targeted intervention, the hemisphere can be leaders in this important cause. Thank you, Chair.
Gracias a usted por
Thank you very much for that statement. I now offer the floor to El Salvador. Thank you very much, Chair, Secretary General, Assistant Secretary General, distinguished delegates and panelists. Today we are meeting to reflect on the future architecture in our region and the central role that women play in it. In El Salvador, we understand digital transformation not only as a development objective, but an imperative for justice and historical reparation. The gap that we are trying to close today in the digital sphere reflect nearly a century of inequalities. In the late 1800s, a woman from my country became the first engineer in Spanish-speaking in the Spanish-speaking Americas. She overcame gender bias at a very difficult time. This spirit has evolved and multiplied. In 1930, the first woman became a medical doctor in my country, and other women followed suit. Knowledge must be a common good and a tool for liberation. Chair, closing the digital divide is urgent because it has an intergenerational impact. For girls and adolescents, technology determines their educational path. In the recent Pan American Congress held in my country in 2024, we spoke about the need for safe digital environments and protecting children. For young women and adult women, access to technology is synonymous with autonomy. Nowadays, you need to develop skills in STEM and digital environments to become creators of solutions. For older women, and pursuant to the Inter-American Convention on the Protection of Human Rights, access to tech ensures their participation in society. We recognize all of the pioneering women in El Salvador who have played an important role in the past and in the present. Dr. Sochi Sandoval is one of those such women, and she is recognized in the Gallery of Heroines here at the OAS. And we also have our first astrophysicist, and she leads the first space program for El Salvadoran girls. We reaffirm that technology must be a great social equalizer. That is why we call upon this Council and the Inter-American Council for Integral Development to strengthen or develop training programs in STEM, cybersecurity, and other areas for women and girls, and to build tools such as the Academy for Youth in Digital Transformation. Chair, as you mentioned, this commemoration is not just a day of reflection, it is a turning point to ensure that the digital transformation of the Americas has the voice of women, and the OAS must contribute to that objective. Thank you. Thank you, Ambassador. I now offer the floor to the Dominican Republic. Chair of the Permanent Council, Assistant Secretary General, Executive Secretary of the Inter-American Commission on Women, I'd like to thank the chair for receiving this request to convene the special meeting of the Permanent Council to commemorate the International Women's Day. This is a historic day. It is a time to address challenges such as the accelerated digital transformation affecting our societies. It's a timely opportunity, and the Dominican Republic again calls upon countries in the region to continue working to build societies that are truly equitable, democratic, and free from violence. The valuable presentations by the panelists are greatly appreciated and explain today's reality. They are important sources of reflection as we look at decision-making processes. Digital transformation in our hemisphere must be a tool for inclusion and not a new space of exclusion. We need more innovative and democratic societies, meaning that women must be able to participate on equal footing in governance and in the design of these emerging technologies. Gender diversity fosters innovation and improves decision-making. Chair, the Dominican Republic has made progress on connectivity, access to devices, and internet use, while strengthening women's participation in decision-making on tech. One example of this is that 5 of the 10 executive positions in our government office on ICTs, or optic, are held by women, and they account for 46% of total staff in that department. This commitment undergirds programs and public policies such as the National Strategy on Development, the Plan for Gender Equality, the 2030 digital strategy, and our innovation strategy. They provide for key actions to close the gender gap, promote digital literacy of women and girls, and provide equal access to ICTs. Similarly, through the Institute of Telecommunications, there is another initiative that is providing mobile devices and connectivity to thousands of women who are vulnerable heads of household. Other progress has been made, yet women in our hemisphere still face many challenges in the digital sphere. There is still a considerable deficit in terms of skills and knowledge, which would enable women to fully take advantage of digital tools. And this means that existing socioeconomic gaps could persist. Women, adolescents, and girls face a higher risk of being victims of various forms of digital violence, which are exacerbated by new trends such as AI and the spread of disinformation. Increasing digitization in our region offers both challenges and opportunities for women's human rights, and they will require policy and regulatory responses that are more robust. Our response to these phenomena must be a collective one and well suited to the challenges to come. This includes continuing important lines of action, such as encouraging women's participation in STEM, as well as intersectionality in public policies when it comes to digital development, science, and tech. In this context, we believe that it is key to strengthen the role of the OAS as a place for technical cooperation, standard harmonization, and coordination of best practices. Chair, the Dominican Republic reaffirms its determination to continue working constructively with the OAS and its member states to ensure that the digital transformation in the hemisphere is guided by the principles of equality, human rights, and sustainable development. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ambassador. I now offer the floor to Chile. Thank you very much, Chair. Allow me also to thank all of the panelists who spoke today. Their presentations were excellent. Allow me also to welcome the Assistant Secretary General and the entire team. Chile has actively sought to contribute to the preparatory work of this important meeting. Along with 12 other delegations, we are very pleased that we are holding this special session as a time for dialogue and a time that calls us to action. We are making this work more visible, and here I'd like to recognize Delegate Catalina Vera for allowing us to have the chance to hold this activity. Our conversation today is particularly relevant in the current context in various parts of the world and in our region. We see historical advances in gender equality and women's rights, but there are new challenges and even setbacks. As one of the panelists said, I believe it was Ms. Velasco, the world was created by men for men using men's rules. And women today are unfortunately facing setbacks. But in Chile, we believe that this is also a call to action. One of the issues that I'll bring up today is just that. For Chile, digital transformation cannot be addressed just from a technological or economic perspective. It is a deeply political process that defines power dynamics, access to knowledge, public participation, and the exercise of rights. Again, as Ms. Velasquez said, individual decisions aren't made in a vacuum. They are preceded by many other decisions. The way that we design emerging technologies has direct consequences on the security and stability of our democracies, and of course the protection and participation of women. Ensuring full, equal, and meaningful participation of women and girls in these processes, it's not just a matter of equity. It's not just a box to check every once in a while. It's a chance to ensure that technology contributes to their well-being and does not reproduce structural discrimination. For Chile, in multilateral institutions, this commitment is expressed through our feminist foreign policy promoted by President Gabriel Boric's administration. And it promotes the systematic integration of a gender perspective in emerging agendas, including digital governance, AI, and cybersecurity. Inspired by the principles of social justice and democracy, this policy recognizes historical women's movements and different schools of thought, as well as the construction of more inclusive societies, and we integrate these principles into our multilateral actions. In line with this, Chile has made specific progress at the national level to have a safer and more inclusive digital ecosystem. We have a cybersecurity strategy, and we also have a national policy on AI, which was updated in 2024. Both of these documents are concrete actions to strengthen the regulatory framework so that we can address gender-based violence online, which is an extension of historical violence that has disproportionately affected women and girls. In this context, there is a process underway to pass a bill along those lines, and we hope that our Congress will approve it. At the same time, our country is promoting policies to increase women's participation in STEM. We have a national policy on women in STEM, which seeks to ensure full and equal participation of women throughout the science and tech ecosystem. To conclude, Chair, and I believe I have 40 seconds left, we need to recognize that the digital transformation can also amplify existing inequalities if we do not, from the beginning, incorporate principles of equity, inclusion, and human rights. Chile believes that the digital transformation in our societies needs to be inclusive by design and incorporate a gender-based perspective into data governance, AI, and other areas. This is not a sector-based agenda. It is a condition to ensure that we strengthen our democracies and expand our rights, because the digital future of our societies. Thank you very much, Ambassador. I apologize. You were cut off. I offer the floor again, or rather to Canada. Thank you very much, Chair. Canada is proud to be among the delegations that co-sponsored this special meeting to commemorate International Women's Day. First of all, I'd like to thank SIM, the IACHR, as well as the organization Our Secure Future for their presentations today. And I'd like to thank them for their ongoing work in the area of women and digital transformation. The Inter-American system has been at the forefront of these issues, particularly with respect to women's leadership in the digital sector, fighting online gender-based violence, cybersecurity, and the use of AI to support the design of gender-sensitive policies. For Canada, improving women and gender equality means creating stronger societies that are more fair and more prosperous. In the context of the digital transformation, Canada underscores the essential role of women's leadership in creating digital ecosystems that are safe, inclusive, and respectful of rights. This means addressing persistent gender gaps in the area of STEM and in emerging technologies, where unfortunately women are still underrepresented. Women and all of their diversity must have equal opportunity to access leadership positions, and we must identify obstacles to their recruitment and retention. We must also reduce the wage gap between men and women.
Tools increasingly shape conflict dynamics, peace-building, and democratic processes. Canada is advancing the integration of women, peace, and security perspectives into digital governance and emerging security challenges through Foundations for Peace, our third National Action Plan on Women, Peace, and Security, which runs until 2029. This cross-government effort is one of the world's only national plans to feature an official role for civil society. Canada recognizes that technology-facilitated gender-based violence is an evolving security threat. Online harassment, cyber-stalking, and the non-consensual sharing of sexual images disproportionately target women, girls, and 2S LGBTIQ+ individuals, including women peacebuilders and women's human rights defenders. Women in leadership roles in public life are particularly impacted by disinformation, facing attacks that aim to discredit them, question their competence, and silence their voices through harassment and false narratives. These attacks undermine human rights, democratic participation, economic stability, and social coherence. In fact, women are often targeted exactly for the purposes of attacking democracy and democratic institutions. Online threats and violence against women and girls have repercussions not only for their health and well-being, but for the economy, security, and freedom of all of us. Canada values its collaboration with the SIM and with the Inter-American Commission for Human Rights, and is proud to support their efforts to advance gender equality and the empowerment of women and girls in the region. This includes the SIM's practical guide and virtual course on responding to gender disinformation, which serves as a tool for understanding challenges related to digital violence against women. AI offers vast opportunities to advance gender equality, but it also poses significant risks if not designed and applied inclusively. Canada believes that advancing gender equality and bridging the gender-AI divide must include promoting and protecting the human rights of all women and girls, not only protecting them from AI-generated threats and violence, but also promoting their access and to the benefit of AI technologies. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Gracias.
Thank you very much. I now for the floor to Bolivia. Thank you, Chair. We would like to thank all of the panelists for their important presentations today, and we'd like to recognize the dedicated work of SIM, particularly. Today we commemorate International Women's Day, an international day to focus on gender equality, empower women, and promote and protect all of their rights. But today we are not just commemorating a historic day. We are evaluating our ability for technology to become a tool of liberation and not a new wall of exclusion. This is urgent and we cannot wait. Full inclusion of women in the digital future of our region. The reality that we are facing in the Americas is harsh. Women's participation in certain fields has stagnated. Women represent barely 25% of staff in tech. In addition, violence online has become a democratic barrier for women due to high levels of online harassment and threats to women involved in politics. Bolivia has raised its voice and made concrete progress. Digital transformation cannot happen without security, peace, and democracy and equality. Recently, we presented our first national plan of action on women, peace, and security to respond to a resolution of the UN Security Council. This plan includes digital security as a fundamental area of focus. It seeks to eliminate violence against women online and promote their leadership in data governance. It also positions women as active agents of change in institutions that have been traditionally male, such as the armed forces and the police. We also have an entire arsenal to fight violence and harassment of women. Along with UNICEF, we have launched a pioneering policy to empower girls and acquire digital and socio-emotional skills. The success of our youth is clear. Our delegation won an award at the International Olympiad for Robotics in 2025, and other prizes were awarded to Singapore and Switzerland in previous years. Yet challenges persist. In Bolivia, only 1/3 of students in STEM are women. Digital gaps in rural areas continue to be very high, but there's no doubt about the path forward. Our government approved at the end of last December a decree to improve satellite connections and allow foreign operators to operate in our country. This is a cutting-edge policy to ensure better connectivity for equitable participation by both men and women. Other important progress has taken place. In 2024, women represented 45% of students in STEM in Bolivian universities, which is a significant amount of progress for parity in the hard sciences. The digital transformation must be a motor for equality. It must not deepen gaps. We must achieve parity in decision-making institutions and reduce algorithm bias. That's why it'd be very helpful for us to use all of the tools at our disposal thanks to SIM. All women, girls, and adolescents should have the opportunity and access to promote our future and to do so without fear and with full exercise of their rights. Thank you. Thank you very much. I now offer the floor to Jamaica.
Mr. Chair, Assistant Secretary General Ambassador Laura Hill, distinguished permanent representatives, and other distinguished ladies and gentlemen. The delegation of Jamaica is honored to join member states of the Organization of American States in commemorating International Women's Day under the timely theme, Women in Digital Transformation. This theme calls our attention to one of the defining issues of our time, that is, ensuring that the rapid evolution of digital technologies becomes a force for inclusion rather than exclusion. As our societies increasingly rely on digital platforms for education, commerce, governance, and civic engagement, it is imperative that women and girls are not merely participants in this transformation, but leaders, innovators, and architects of the digital future. Across the Americas, women continue to face structural barriers in accessing digital tools, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, education, financing, and leadership opportunities in technological sectors. Bridging the digital gender divide is therefore not only a matter of equity, it is a prerequisite for sustainable development, economic resilience, and democratic participation. In Jamaica, advancing women's empowerment within the digital space forms part of our broader national development strategy and digital transformation agenda. Through our National Digital Transformation Policy and Digital Jamaica program, the government of Jamaica is modernizing public services, expanding broadband access, and strengthening digital literacy. A critical component of these efforts is ensuring that women and girls, particularly those in rural and underserved communities, have equitable access to connectivity and digital skills training. The government has also prioritized STEM education for girls at all levels of the education system. Initiatives led by the Ministry of Education and Youth promote coding, robotics, and technology clubs in schools, while partnerships with the private sector and civil society encourage mentorship and career pathways for young women in ICT fields. In addition, government has been advancing programs to support women entrepreneurs in the digital economy. Through agencies such as the Jamaica Business Development Corporation and the Development Bank of Jamaica, women-owned micro, small, and medium enterprises are benefiting from digital capacity building, e-commerce training, and access to financing to scale their businesses in the online marketplace. Recognizing that digital transformation must be safe and secure, initiatives are also aimed at strengthening the legislative and policy framework in areas such as data protection and cybersecurity. Protecting women and girls from online abuse, exploitation, and cyber violence is an essential dimension of ensuring that digital spaces are empowering rather than harmful. Mr. Chair, while we celebrate progress, we acknowledge that much more work remains. The digital revolution must not deepen existing inequalities. Instead, it must be harnessed to dismantle them. At the hemispheric level, the OAS has an important role to play through the Inter-American Commission of Women, the Inter-American Committee on Ports, CITEL, and other mechanisms in promoting digital inclusion, policy exchange, and capacity building initiatives that place women at the center of technological advancement. Jamaica reaffirms its commitment to working with member states and partners to close the digital gender gap, promote women's leadership in innovation, and ensure that the digital transformation of our hemisphere is inclusive, equitable, and people-centered. As we commemorate International Women's Day, let us commit not only to celebrating women's achievements in the digital sphere, but to creating the conditions that will enable every girl in our hemisphere to imagine, design, and lead the technologies of tomorrow. Mr. Chair, I thank you.
Gracias a usted.
Thank you very much. I now offer the floor to the Bahamas.
The Permanent Mission of the Bahamas joins member states in commemorating International Women's Day under the theme Women in the Digital Transformation of the Americas. Across the Americas, women are innovators, coders, entrepreneurs, educators, policymakers, and community leaders. Despite these immense contributions, women remain underrepresented in STEM careers, digital leadership, and technology governance. Women are also disproportionately affected by barriers to broadband access, digital financing, online safety, and algorithmic biases. Digital transformation strengthens resilience, diversifies economies, enhances disaster response, and expands global market access. It is redefining how our economies grow, how our governments deliver services, and how our citizens engage in civic life. The government of the Bahamas has advanced several initiatives to ensure women and girls have equitable access to digital technologies and opportunities. These initiatives are part of a broader national digitalization strategy that aims to foster inclusivity and promote digital literacy and skills among women and girls. First, we have strengthened national digital literacy through several programs offered by nonprofit organizations and educational institutions aimed at women and girls. In primary and secondary school levels, schools have integrated digital education into their curricula and hold after-school events to engage girls in technology-related subjects. For post-secondary institutions, the University of the Bahamas offers courses designed to engage women and girls in digital education. We further promote STEM education through targeted national educational reforms, coding initiatives, robotics programs, and public-private partnerships designed to prepare young Bahamian women for careers in technology and emerging industries. Second, the Bahamas notes that the primary barrier to mobile and digital use is affordability. The Bahamas has sought to improve the cost of data and devices. Several initiatives have been introduced to help alleviate costs, included through free training courses for officers employed in the public service on common software applications offered through the Department of Information Communication Technology. Further initiatives such as the JUMP initiative supported by the Bahamas Telecommunications Company in collaboration with the Ministry of Education provide approved families with subsidized broadband services, digital skills training, and laptops. This initiative targets families within BTC's fiber footprint who do not have internet access at home. Third, the Bahamas recognizes that digital inclusion also means digital safety. The Bahamas has taken steps to strengthen legislative and policy frameworks addressing cybercrime and online exploitation, ensuring that women and girls can participate confidently and securely in digital spaces. In 2023, the Bahamas passed a landmark Protection Against Violence Act, which established a Protection Against Violence Commission and Secretariat to coordinate with agencies, provide technical support, and allocate funding towards a unified national response to violence. The legislation sets a clear example of our commitment to protection of persons against violence in line with international frameworks, including the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women and the Convention of Belém do Pará. Digital transformation within our hemisphere is constantly evolving. It is important that we work together to ensure that women and girls can thrive and feel safe in a technology-driven world. The Bahamas commends the Executive Secretariat of the Inter-American Commission of Women in its capacity as the technical secretariat of the follow-up mechanism of the Belém do Pará Convention for its continued work, particularly on the Inter-American Model Law to prevent, punish, and eradicate gender-based violence, digital violence against women, approved in December 2025 during the 10th Conference of the States Parties. The Bahamas remains committed to working with the Inter-American system, particularly the Executive Secretariat of the SIM, to ensure that the digital future of the Americas is inclusive and safe for all women and girls. Thank you, Chair.
Gracias por su intervención. Concedo el uso de la palabra a la delegada.
Thank you. I give the floor to Ecuador. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Chair of the Permanent Council. Permanent Representative Alternate, Mr. Secretary General, Madam Assistant Secretary General, Distinguished Executive Secretary, Special Rapporteur on the Inter-American Commission on Women. Ecuador, sir, appreciates the commemoration of the International Day of Women with the topic Women in the Digital Transformation of the Americas. We value the effort to put such an important topic and a current one on the hemispheric agenda, which is the impact of emerging technologies on the lives of people and the use of it as an instrument of violence. Today, we pay tribute to those women who have experienced or are experienced emotional winters due to anxiety or attacks online. Given the importance of this date, we would like to share, with all due respect and a spirit of constructive dialogue, a couple of thoughts. As a starting point, we need to look at the binary concept of the world, not witches. They seem to be understood not just in terms of a constructivism or essentialism, not just based on plural views. They are included even in the crafting of the concept note. That's the only way to guarantee pluralism. Any other way would obey apparent democracy patterns, which look great, making us believe that there is inclusion. We hear of exclusive inclusiveness, which is a paradox which go back to the Roman forms where a person could be assassinated without the act being considered homicide. There are many ways of killing pluralism. To further understand this, we should contemplate the following questions. There are two tricks around the image of women: putting the women on a pedestal and then protecting her. For example, in her supposed purity, with which we prevent the necessary existential fight to make the woman a diverse individual, which is separate from men. Women being assimilated in material equality to men without realizing that it is women that are the architects of their own fate. Secondly, another way of creating this dupery is creating an identity of women, which is not true. Digital, physical, psychological attacks on women, men, children, and senior citizens, all of this should be fought with the same energy and with preventive legal tools, declarative tools, and sanctioning tools, and with the same political determination. That's a position which is consistent with the principle of equality before the law enshrined in the OAS law and the American Convention on Human Rights. Any positive discrimination is valid for the purposes of protection and should be in direct relationship to the vulnerability of victims. Technology and all the tools of it are very important on that agenda. As an example, I would mention that since 2004, the early warning assistant for femicide in Ecuador helps to prevent violence against women. Chair, the OAS is, par excellence, the privileged space where the voices of the Americas can be heard with respect and under equal conditions. We are convinced that listening to each other with openness and good faith is the best way of honoring this important commemoration. It's a moral imperative, which is always current, to listen to women, to hear women's thoughts, and to recognize all their contributions throughout history, contributions to culture, philosophy, science, religion, art, contributions which are part of our history, including the transcendent action of thought. This is urgent, to listen to women and to hear their thoughts, to, in a pluralistic way, build. We need that voice. Ecuador reaffirms its firm commitment to the rights of all people without distinction, with an agenda that promotes human dignity in its integrity, one that would raise women to genuine inclusion in all arenas. This would include digital transformation. The greatest contribution of women to digital transformation will come from the full exercise of women's freedom, talent, and the speaker was cut off, notes the interpreter.
Por su intervención.
Thank you for that statement, says the chair. I give the floor to Barbados.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I marvel at what Barbadian women from every walk of life continue to accomplish. Those who open their hearts and homes when there is little to share. Those who stretch the dollar further than any economist could ever. It is she who ensures that no matter how small the pot, no one in the house goes to bed hungry. And if ever sacrifice must be made, too often it is she who bears it. We owe women and girls more than we currently offer. Mr. Chairman, Barbados joins this hemisphere in marking this International Women's Day, mindful of the progress made and resolute about the work that remains. Today's theme compels us as a hemisphere to confront a simple truth. Equality in the 21st century must include digital rights. It is no longer optional, it is a fundamental. And yet, Mr. Chairman, despite knowing real gaps still exist, women remain underrepresented. They remain overburdened by unpaid labor. And gender-based violence, including online, threatens dignity and participation. It is against that backdrop that Barbados believes that when women and girls are empowered, online and offline, economies strengthen, societies deepen, and innovation flourishes. That means putting necessary policy frameworks in place to close the digital divide as deliberately as we close the wage gap. It means ensuring women share artificial intelligence, not merely consuming it. It means protecting privacy, confronting online abuse, and embedding fairness into technologies defining our future. Women for too long have always been the architects of resilience. It is time that they be the true architects of our future. Mr. Chairman, as I close, Barbados reaffirms its commitment to creating a human-centric innovation ecosystem to support our goal to facilitate our transformation into the best place to live, learn, play, work, and dream, leaving no one behind and placing women and girls at the center of that development vision. Today, we celebrate, but more importantly, we commit to expand rights, protect dignity, and secure opportunity for every woman and girl. But let us be clear, gender inequality is not a woman's issue. It is a societal one. Its causes and its remedies demand collective responsibility. Respect must be practiced daily. Inclusion must be built deliberately and courageously. Because, my friends, when women and girls succeed, our hemisphere succeeds. Mr. Chairman, I thank you.
Gracias por su intervención.
Thank you for that statement. I now give the floor to Peru, who had also joined in requesting this session. Thank you, sir. Madam Assistant Secretary General, Peru would like to thank the Permanent Council for attending to the request to have this special session to commemorate the International Day of Women. We would also like to express our recognition to the distinguished panelists for their very worthwhile thoughts that help us to examine with responsibility the future, the role of women in the digital transformation of our Americas. Commemoration of 8 March goes beyond symbolism. It calls upon us to recognize women in economic and scientific progress in our nations and reaffirm states' responsibilities in creating the conditions that would expand opportunity, strengthen capacity, and consolidate more dynamic and resilient societies. Sir, digital transformation is structurally redefining the way which we learn, produce, and innovate. It's not just about new technologies, but transforming our education, economies, and public policies. For Peru, this is a strategic opportunity to ramp up sustainable development, increase production, productivity, and strengthen our competitiveness in an increasingly intense competitive global world, especially in the area of innovation. However, this process also shows us that there are huge gaps that need to be closed as a priority. Access to digital technologies and opportunities limit impact, especially for women who have to combat additional barriers to access to technology and the digital economy. Closing the gender technology divide is not just a matter of equity, but it's a sine qua non condition for development. Fully including women broadens the talent base, increases innovation, and provides for more sustainable and inclusive growth. Peru, around 30% of those that conduct science investigation are women, according to the National Science, Technology, Innovation Survey in my country. This information shows clear progress, but also confirms the need to increase their participation in areas where we generate knowledge and create technologies that will impact our future. With that goal in mind, the Ministry of Women and Vulnerable Populations and the National Council of Science, Technology, and Innovation in my country has been promoting initiatives geared to promoting women's participation in STEM careers. An example of that is implementation in 2020 of a program for mentorship for women in STEM. With the support of international cooperation, we have strengthened access, permanence, and professional development in these strategic sectors for women. In addition, in 2025, we established a multi-sectoral working group in my country to coordinate government efforts to promote productivity and innovation amongst women. Initiatives such as Digital Girls of Peru also contribute to promote technology access from an early age, expanding horizons for our girls and adolescents. Digital transformation also requires an institutional, updated, and sound response. In 2024, Peru updated its legislation in the area of information laws, where we prohibit dissemination of images with sexual content or the use of digital media or technology for any sexual blackmail or manipulation digitally. This update of our laws strengthens the state's capacity to combat emerging forms of violence online, fill legal gaps, and stop impunity with regard to these crimes. Along those lines, in 2023, we adopted a law that promotes the use of AI for economic social development of the country, and in 2025, we enacted laws which are currently in place. This normative framework establishes principles to promote the development and use responsibly for AI, with standards of traceability, transparency, accountability, and in respect to fundamental rights, and to build public trust in these technologies. Chair, on this International Day of Women, Peru reaffirms that sustainable development, innovation, and prosperity will only be achievable if women fully participate in building the digital future. That this commemoration should inspire us to continue working to make sure that each girl, young person, and woman would find in science, technology, and the digital economy not a barrier, but rather an opportunity. Thank you, sir. Thank you. I give the floor to Colombia. Thank you, sir. Distinguished representative of member states, Madam Assistant Secretary General, Executive Secretary, distinguished permanent observers, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank the panelists that are here today for this special session convened to commemorate the International Day of Women. This date invites us to look at the progress achieved in the area of equality, but also to think responsibly about the ongoing challenges and emerging challenges for women and girls in our societies. This year, we decided to focus our commemoration on a topic which is very current and strategic for the hemisphere, and here we will refer to that. Digital transformation is redefining our economies, educational systems, productive models, forms of interaction, socially, and democratic institutions. It's a structural process which has a direct impact on sustainable development, competitiveness, and inclusion around the region. In that context, full participation and effective participation in equal condition for women is a necessary condition for the digital transformation to truly be innovative, democratic, and inclusive. Figures show that there are still significant gaps for women's access to STEM careers, their presence in the technology sector, and leadership in the digital arena and those spaces where technologies are regulated and designed. We also have new challenges such as digital violence, gender-based violence, disinformation with discriminatory blind spots, and the risks of reproducing inequalities through the algorithms. Clearly, this conversation is taking place fully in the spirit promoted by the United Nations this year, justice, equity, action for all girls and women. Human rights are universal and fully applicable in the digital arena. Justice, because transformation cannot be a new space of exclusion or reproduction of historical inequalities. Action, because commitments undertaken in our inter-American frameworks need to become concrete public policies, effective regional cooperation, and lead to measurable results. The OAS, through the Inter-American Commission on Women and other specialized bodies, has developed tools to support states on this path. That includes instruments to combat digital violence and promote women's leadership in technology ecosystems. We celebrate these advances, and we must continue on this path. Some examples that Colombia has promoted to drive women's participation in digital transformation are programs such as Chicas 5. It's motivating women and girls to attending educational institutions, public or private, to look at areas such as science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics, and to promote their study of that. We're also promoting exercise of exploration and action in these fields, using digital resources, online work sessions, support with a facilitating team, and a meeting with mentorship women who are experts in science or engineers. The Ministry of National Education also set up a guide aimed at the entire educational community to facilitate adoption of the educational focus this year, starting from the beginning of education with a gender point of view. We're also promoting access and presence of women in non-traditional careers. And to that end, we have designed a program to promote the training of women, which we are used for modifying gender stereotypes that tend to limit participation of women in these areas. From the same point of view, in recent years, the last 4 years, we've made progress in developing non-conventional spaces for learning in science and technology for girls and young people, for basic and middle education, by designing materials such as sonograms with keys for selecting careers, financing, and a website aimed at modifying gender stereotypes. Chair, Colombia appreciates the opportunity of this session to hear expert voices, to exchange experiences, and to reaffirm our collective determination to use digital transformation to broaden opportunity and not deepen the gap. We appreciate the hemispheric commitment to the digital agenda more focused on human dignity, equality, and inclusive development for all women. Thank you. Thank you. Guatemala has the floor. Thank you, sir. Guatemala would like to commend this special session on commemorating the International Day of Women. We recall here that equality system is an indicator directly of the quality of our institutions and of our capacity to build more safe, prosperous, and fair societies. We would express our sincere gratitude to the distinguished panelists that are here with us today for their worthwhile contributions to our reflections. Their contributions reaffirm that if we think coherently and jointly, we can strengthen our capacity and we can achieve concrete results in favor of women's rights. It's also important to recognize that what our region has achieved. The Inter-American Women's Commission, created in 1928, was a pioneer, the first intergovernmental body dedicated specifically to the defense and promotion of women's rights, we women. That leadership historically taught us that equality needs to be a structural component of democracy. Also, they wanted to convention ratified by Guatemala in 1995 showed us a shared vision of the responsibility of states to prevent violence against women. The current challenge is to make those commitments operative with the proper institutions and guarantee effective access to justice. Chair, this day also reminds us that there are still challenges in education, healthcare, participation, and economic autonomy. There are also obstacles that limit opportunities and put safety at risk. To that, we should add other challenges such as the digital gap and online violence, mostly impacting girls and women, which require comprehensive approach that are modern, focused on rights and dignity. In that regard, we are promoting laws that are strategic to prevent violence with a new focus on human rights and including a gender perspective. Digital transformation should be inclusive. Otherwise, we run the risk of deepening already existing inequalities. On the 2nd of March in Guatemala, the Department of the Women under the presidency promoted national policy for the plan of 2026 to 2041, which corresponds to the necessary historic changes for the lives of women in Guatemala in keeping with the current government's approach. Exclusion, violence, discrimination, and unfair treatment against some half of our population is a wound from the past, and we must grapple with the decision and build a necessary bridge in order to make progress towards a better future. When women progress, Guatemala progresses. Women and safety established by the UN resolution through the relevant resolution and other resolutions reaffirms the importance of full participation of women for prevention and reduction of conflict, protection of their rights, and their inclusion in building new societies. Guatemala is based on the convinced not only about the victims of conflicts, but also the importance of women for resilience and social cohesion. Today, the message should be clear. Making progress in equality is strengthening democracy. It means preventing violence. It means strengthening the rule of law and providing opportunities for women. And that means ramping up development. Guatemala reaffirms its commitment to continue driving specific action in the national area hemispherically to strengthen women's participation in decision-making spaces. The goal is that this presence would become have a real impact through public policies, services, and results for women throughout the region. Also reiterate our willingness to continue working with member states and bodies in the inter-American system to consolidate the progress already achieved and grapple with pending challenges. Because when women progress, our institutions progress, democracy progresses, and our region progresses. Thank you. Thank you, Ambassador. I give the floor to Guyana.
Thank you, Chair. The Guyana delegation joins in this year's commemoration of the International Women's Day under the forward-looking theme of women in the digital transformation of the Americas. We thank those member states that requested this special session for us to listen and share our views on this very important topic, and we especially thank the panelists for sharing their insightful presentations with us. Chair, across our hemisphere, digital transformation is reshaping the way in which we educate, train, innovate, and connect. These changes are having a significant impact in every sector of our societies, and we must ensure that this transformation is inclusive, equitable, and firmly grounded in human rights. As we navigate this evolving landscape, we must recognize that women are equal participants in shaping our digital future. Women are not merely the beneficiaries of digital progress, we are also the innovators, policymakers, entrepreneurs, and educators driving that progress forward. Chair, the Inter-American system has long affirmed that gender equality is fundamental to democracy and sustainable development. As we advance our digital agendas across this region, it is our responsibility to ensure that women's creativity, innovation, and expertise are reflected in every policy framework, every investment decision, and every innovation strategy. In this context, Guyana remains committed to advancing women's full participation in this digital era. As our country continues on its developmental trajectory, we have introduced a series of targeted initiatives aimed at bridging the gender gap in technology through expanded educational access, entrepreneurship opportunities, and specialized ICT training. One key example is the Guyana Digital School, which has been playing a transformative role in advancing women's empowerment through online courses in coding, data literacy, digital marketing, and other in-demand tech fields. This initiative helps women and girls, especially in rural and underserved communities, to gain the knowledge and tools they need in entrepreneurship, remote work, and leadership in technology, so they can participate fully in the digital economy. Chair, Guyana reaffirms its commitment to working with all stakeholders in our region to secure a future in the Americas where women do not only use technology, but are active participants in its creation and design, where innovation is inclusive, opportunity is equitable, and where the digital space remains safe, democratic, and empowering for all. I thank you.
Gracias a usted.
Thank you. I give the floor to Belize now.
Distinguished Chair, Excellencies, colleagues, the digital transformation of the Americas is redefining power, production, and the way of life across our hemisphere. The question before us is clear. Are we building a digital future that expands women's participation and leadership, or one that deepens exclusion and risk? In commemorating International Women's Day, this year's theme, Women in Digital Transformation of the Americas, compels us to consider whether this new technological age has been built with half our population fully in mind. Across the Americas, digital spaces are engines of innovation and growth. Yet, they are also spaces where women face disproportionate harassment, violence, algorithmic biases, and structural underrepresentation. When women are pushed out of digital innovation, democratic governance and economic resilience and social cohesion are weakened. The Americas should approach this moment with a simple conviction. Digital transformation must be designed with women at the center, not as beneficiaries, but as architects. This conviction is manifested in Belize's National Digital Infrastructure Plan and initiatives led by the Ministry of Governance. In December 2025, Belize launched a modernized digital civil registry and vital statistics system, replacing outdated paper-based processes. This reform may sound administrative, but it is deeply transformative. Secure and accessible legal documentation is the gateway to rights, especially for women who face barriers to property ownership, financial inclusion, and economic opportunity. By digitizing these services and establishing digital connect centers across the country, we are removing institutional obstacles, especially for those in the rural areas. Our efforts expand with the development of a national identification framework. Last month, the government of Belize launched broad consultations for the National Identification Bill to establish a unified and secure legal foundation for identity management. The proposed framework prioritizes data privacy, clear governance structures, improved access to services and financial systems, and accelerated digital transformation. In the context of today's discussion, this is critical. As we are reminded in the concept note, technological ecosystems can either reinforce inequality or strengthen democratic resilience. Belize also recognizes that inclusion must extend beyond access. The digital economy is expanding rapidly, particularly in STEM fields, yet women remain underrepresented in leadership across the technology sector. Through our National Digital Agenda initiatives, we are also strengthening digital literacy, building public capacity, and promoting girls in ICT. Last year, more than 100 girls from across Belize came together not only to hear firsthand from accomplished Belizean women in ICT and STEM, but to step into those roles themselves by coding drones to fly. We must also confront digital violence and online harassment directly. Belize recognizes that digital transformation must also mean digital protection. Through strengthened cybercrime legislation, data privacy safeguards, and coordinated responses to gender-based violence, we are working to ensure that technology is not weaponized against women. Digital governance is not separate from democratic governance. It is the next stage in the evolution of democracy itself. As we modernize our systems and policies, we should be asking, does this reform make it easier for a woman to access justice, to secure credit, to register her business, to protect her data? International Women's Day calls us to be intentional about the world we are building. The digital transformation of the Americas will continue rapidly, decisively, and irreversibly. Our responsibility is to ensure that it strengthens institutional resilience, protects fundamental freedoms, and opens doors rather than closing them. The future of our hemisphere is being coded today. Let us ensure women are writing that code. Thank you.
Gracias.
Thank you. I offer the floor to St. Kitts and Nevis.
Chair, distinguished colleagues, Assistant Secretary General Laura Hill, and dear panelists, this delegation expresses its sincere appreciation for today's enlightening engagement. As we approach the celebration of International Women's Day on March 8th, I'm particularly pleased to recognize and salute the invaluable contributions of women to building a world grounded in balance, inclusion, and shared progress. St. Kitts and Nevis welcomes the opportunity to address the theme, Women in the Digital Transformation of the Americas, in this pertinent special sitting of the Council. My Twin Island Federation recognizes that accelerating digitalization brings immense opportunities for inclusion and growth, but also new forms of combating exclusion and violence that disproportionately affect women and girls. We share the concern that digital violence, online harassment, and algorithmic bias undermine women's full participation in public life, weaken social cohesion, and erode democratic resilience. In our context, where digital tools are increasingly central to governance, commerce, and social interaction, St. Kitts and Nevis is committed to ensuring that no woman or girl is left behind or silenced in these spaces. At the national level, our ongoing digital transformation agenda is anchored in the rollout of a secure national digital identity and authentication system designed to improve access to online government services within a rights-respecting, privacy-protective framework. This initiative is coupled with human capacity development in areas such as digital identity management, digital certificates, and information security, creating new opportunities for women professionals in the public service and the wider economy. We are complementing this with targeted efforts to build a pipeline of women and girls ready to lead in STEM and ICT. Through our Girls in ICT engagements, St. Kitts and Nevis is equipping girls and young women with the skills and confidence needed to thrive in a digitally transformed world, positioning our federation to take full advantage of the digital economy. These activities promote community engagement, mentorship, and collaboration, and respond directly to regional and global calls to expand girls' participation in science and technology under safe and non-discriminatory conditions. Our National Gender Equality Policy and Action Plan 2022 to 2027 further commits us to gender-inclusive communication and to participating with key agencies, including the Ministry of Information, Communication and Technology and the Department of Gender Affairs, to leverage mass media and digital platforms to transform harmful norms and stereotypes. Through this framework, we are working to mainstream gender across all sectors, including ICT, so that women and girls can fully exercise their rights and contribute equally to national development. St. Kitts and Nevis also values regional initiatives such as the Caribbean Telecommunication Union's Network of Women, which promotes gender mainstreaming in national ICT agendas, mentorship, and knowledge sharing for women and girls in the sector. These efforts are indispensable to closing the gaps in representation and leadership that persist across the digital ecosystem, and to ensuring that innovation serves as a force for equality and not for exclusion. St. Kitts and Nevis stands ready to share its experiences, from digital ID reform to girls in ICT programming, and to learn from sister member states as we collectively build more inclusive, secure, and rights-respecting digital societies across the Americas. Thank you.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you. I offer the floor to Mexico. Thank you, Chair. I'd like to welcome the Assistant Secretary General and the panelists, as well as all of the members of the Council. We also welcome this special meeting of the Permanent Council to commemorate International Women's Day. This is an invitation to all permanent missions and observers to continue expanding opportunities for women, adolescents, and girls, and protecting their autonomy. In our view, the theme of today, which is Women in the Digital Transformation of the Americas, should not only refer to those who actively participate or access the digital transformation. It should also encompass all women, adolescents, and girls who are represented in digital spaces without their consent in ways that actually constitute crimes. When we say all women, we must be inclusive. We risk reinforcing stereotypes when we say things all women are like this or all women act in a certain way. We need to make sure that women are equal, even though they are not treated equally today. We need to address our culture, which is dominated by men. There's a great deal of insecurity, and women are often victim of violence committed by men. We also need to make sure that we address the impact of the patriarchy on women and also on men, starting from childhood. UN Women has seen that in the interactions in the manosphere, we see a lot of harmful impacts on women. We have seen well-known cases, such as the case of Giselle Pellicot in France and in Germany as well. And some 3 million sexualized images of women have been produced using AI, and a high proportion of these are child sexual abuse materials. We must work to fight violence against women online, and a great deal of progress has been made in Mexico. We also congratulate SIM for its work and other countries in the region who promote women's autonomy and promote the women, peace, and security agenda, for instance. However, it is well known that what we have not discussed enough is the participation and responsibility of men in these phenomena, in promoting gender stereotypes. And we must address this urgently so that we can transform our societies and deploy more efforts to achieve justice and equity, and really look at the model of traditional masculinity. For UN Women, it has worked a great deal to promote women's rights. Back in 1924, the first convention was adopted that recognized gender-based violence as a tool of violence, and we need to make sure that we continue this. In Mexico, we have a feminist foreign policy, and we continue to stress that women, adolescents, and girls are not just equal, they're diverse, they're heterogeneous, they're subjects of rights, and they must have absolute freedom to develop their different personalities safely. Men, on the other hand, must find new forms of masculinity. We are innovative in the Americas. There are new forms of living together, and that must be the basis of our responsibility to address violence and inequality. On this International Women's Day, we invite you to adopt a different approach and to incorporate a gender perspective. This is not feminizing the agenda, it's making it universal. Thank you.
Gracias,
Thank you, Ambassador. I offer the floor to St. Lucia.
Thank you, Chair. My delegation is grateful for the convening of this special meeting, and we thank the panelists for their insightful presentations. Chair, as we commemorate International Women's Day, St. Lucia joins this community of nations in honoring the strength, resilience, and invaluable contribution of women and girls in our society and across the hemisphere. This day is both a celebration and a call to action, a reminder that gender equality is fundamental to sustainable development, social justice, and democracy. Today's commemoration under the theme, Women in the Digital Transformation of the Americas, highlights how crucial it is for women to not only have access to new technologies, but to lead in their innovation and application. The digital era must be one of inclusion, where no woman or girl is left behind due to gender-based barriers to education, finance, digital skills, or leadership roles. Across our hemisphere, too many women still face barriers to reliable internet access, digital devices, technical training, and financing for tech-driven enterprises. These gaps are even more pronounced in small island developing states and rural communities, and are further exacerbated by the prevalence of digital violence against women and girls. Closing the digital divide is therefore not simply about infrastructure. It is about equity, empowerment, rights, and protection. For St. Lucia, a nation shaped by the courage and resilience of its people, we recognize that the empowerment of women is central to the prosperity and sustainability of our society. Over the decades, women in St. Lucia have been at the forefront of community development, education, entrepreneurship, and public service. They are leaders in our homes, workplaces, and civic institutions. With this in mind, the government of St. Lucia has taken several practical steps to improve women's and girls' access to technology and digital skills, such as the establishment of community digital centers, specifically in rural communities, which provide access to computers, high-speed internet, digital training, co-working space, and workshops on digital skills, increasing the number of smart classrooms in schools to strengthen digital competencies for students, promotion of private sector initiatives for coding and robotics boot camps, active participation in regional ICT engagements for women and girls, and continued modernization of government services, making them more accessible and participatory. Through the Ministry of Commerce, in collaboration with the OAS Women's Economic Empowerment Project, free training is provided for women-led MSMEs to help secure their success in all aspects of the digital economy. St. Lucia stands committed to policies and partnerships that nurture women's leadership, invest in opportunities for women-owned enterprises, and support the removal of harmful norms that undermine gender equity. We echo the broader OAS mission that true development, peace, and social cohesion cannot be achieved without women's equal voice, representation, and empowerment in all areas of public life. Technology is reshaping how we learn, work, govern, and connect, but it also risks widening existing inequalities if women and girls are not fully included in its design, access, and leadership. By empowering women and girls with the tools, skills, opportunities, as well as legal protection to lead in this era, we move closer to a hemisphere defined not by disparity, but by shared progress and inclusive innovation. Thank you, Chair.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, St. Lucia. The U.S. has the floor.
Thank you, Chair. The United States is pleased to join partners across our hemisphere in recognizing the contribution of women and young ladies and in focusing on practical, measurable outcomes that improve their lives. In the United States, President Trump has called on Americans to celebrate the exceptional women in their lives and in our country. Our message is straightforward. Women's achievements is real, it's earned, and it deserves clear recognition. Whether in public service, family life, civil society, business, science, or sport. As we approach America's 250th anniversary, we are reminded that women were present at the creation of the United States and central to our national character. Abigail Adams urged a new nation to remember the ladies. Dolly Madison safeguarded national symbols at a moment of danger. And in every generation since, American women have strengthened institutions and communities, often carrying extraordinary burdens with quiet resolve. That tradition is unmistakably alive today, including in sport, where the excellence is visible and measurable. At the recent Milano Cortina 2026 Olympic Winter Games, American women delivered performances that reflected discipline and composure under pressure. Michaela Schifrin won Olympic gold in the slalom. Breezy Johnson won Olympic gold in the women's downhill, and the women's ice hockey team won Olympic gold in overtime. These achievements matter because they show what is possible when opportunity is real and excellence is recognized without qualification. In that spirit, the United States has emphasized protecting safe and fair athletic competition for women and young ladies. Chair, today's theme, Women in the Digital Transformation of the Americas, highlights another arena where women's participation must be guaranteed and protected, the online space. The United States strongly supports ensuring women's and young ladies can engage fully in social, civic, political, and economic life online. But online protection must be advanced in ways that uphold freedom of expression and protect privacy. Our approach should be targeted and designed to minimize unnecessary limit on protected speech while balancing the need to punish unprotected speech. That balance is reflected in recent administration action. In May 2025, President Trump signed the Take It Down Act into law, criminalizing non-consensual intimate imagery, including synthetic imagery, and requiring covered platforms to remove such content within 48 hours after notice from a victim. This law was championed by First Lady of the United States, Melania Trump. In September, the First Lady also launched a global coalition of first spouses called Fostering the Future Together, which aims to advance the well-being of children in the digital age. Fostering the Future Together will make available to the countries of the world advanced technology, including artificial intelligence, to assist children, educators, and parents while also protecting them from online dangers. And earlier this week, she presided over a UN Security Council meeting held during the United States rotating presidency, an unprecedented first for sitting First Lady. Chair, the United States notice and takedown approach is important as AR-enabled media manipulation tools are increasingly misused for sextortion, synthetic non-consensual intimacy imagery, and child and sexual abuse materials. Abuses that disappropriately target women and girls and can chill participation in public life. Importantly, our approach is narrowly tailored to address the issues without causing collateral damage to freedom of expression and privacy online. Colleagues, violence and other abuses against women and girls online and offline also drive insecurity and instability in our hemisphere. As Secretary Rubio has noted, what happens in this region impacts the United States directly. High rates of violence, including gang-related and transnational criminalization organization violence, are a significant and often overlooked driver of illegal immigration. Illegal immigration also exposes women and girls to trafficking, forced labor, and sexual violence. Protecting women and girls must remain central to our efforts to strengthen regional security. The United States has also long recognized that the durable peace and security outcomes are not achievable without meaningful participation and safety of women and girls. President Trump signed the Women, Peace and Security Act in 2017, and it continues to guide U.S. efforts. In closing, the United States looks forward to working with partners across the OAS to counter exploitation online, protect women and girls from violence and trafficking, expand economic opportunity, and uphold fundamental freedoms, and ensure women's achievements are recognized clearly and without qualification. Thank you.
Muchas gracias por...
Thank you very much for your statement. I offer the floor to Panama. Thank you very much, Chair. The Republic of Panama would like to thank all of the panelists for their remarks, starting with Ms. Alejandra Mora Mora, Executive Secretary of the Inter-American Commission of Women, Commissioner Marian Bethel, Rapporteur on the Rights of Women of the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights, Ms. Lucia Velasco, former head of AI policy at the UN Office for Digital and Emerging Technologies, and Ms. Sahana Dharmapuri from Our Secure Future. Their contributions remind us that digital transformation is not neutral. It is a political, social, and ethical construct that determines the types of societies created by future generations. Digital transformation in the Americas is not just a technological process. It is a structural transformation that defines the way that we govern, produce, communicate, and participate in democratic life. Its impact goes beyond technical innovation and has a direct impact on regional security, social issues, and the quality of our democracies. The gender gap in accessing emerging technologies and in the fields of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics continue to limit the potential of our societies. When women are underrepresented in the design of algorithms, technological decision-making, or the architecture of digital systems, structural bias tends to be reproduced. We must also recognize a concerning reality. The digital environment also creates new forms of violence, which disproportionately affect girls, teenage girls, and women. Digital violence is real. The dissemination of intimate content, sextortion, online harassment, and the illicit interception of data are not just conflicts. They are violations that harm emotional health and endanger the physical and psychological security of victims. Chair, colleagues, Panama has made decisive progress in improving its regulatory framework. Last year, we passed a law on cyber harassment, and we identified new behaviors like sextortion, cyberbullying, and dissemination of intimate content without consent. We also have a law on personal data protection, which ensures fundamental rights such as the access or the ability to cancel information or remove information, which is key in preventing abuse and protecting privacy. Panama has also integrated these principles into a digital transformation strategy. We align digital governance with protection of data and equal opportunity. Our objective is clear. We must ensure that digitization contributes to security, prosperity, and resilience of institutions. Women, peace, and security needs to be part of the digital agenda. Democratic stability in our century also depends on our ability to ensure safe digital frameworks and environments that are free from violence. The future of the Americas cannot be built without women. If we aspire to have a hemisphere that is competitive, democratic, and safe, we must ensure that women are not just tech users, but creators and leaders in their development. Panama reaffirms its commitment to continue working with all member states and with this organization to build a digital ecosystem where innovation serves human rights, where security and equality are promoted hand in hand, and where female talent can lead this new phase of progress for our hemisphere. I thank you. Thank you, Panama. I offer the floor to Suriname.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The delegation of Suriname wishes to thank the distinguished speakers for their valuable insights on this timely and critical topic. We are grateful for the opportunity to engage in this important conversation. As we approach International Women's Day, we are reminded that behind every policy discussion are real lives, women and girls whose voices, safety, and opportunities must remain at the center of our efforts. Suriname stands firmly with the shared commitment to advancing gender equality and ensuring the full and meaningful participation of women and girls, including in the rapidly evolving digital space. Mr. Chair, digital transformation is reshaping our societies in profound ways. It offers new pathways for connection and economic empowerment. Yet, for many women and girls, these same spaces can also be unsafe and exclusionary. When women are silenced, harassed, or excluded from digital spaces, their ability to participate fully in democratic processes, public discourse, and peace building is fundamentally undermined. Creating safer digital spaces is therefore not only a matter of protection, but also one of empowerment. In this regard, Suriname believes strongly in the importance of practical, forward-looking solutions, expanding access to technology, encouraging girls to pursue STEM education, and ensuring that women are present at decision-making tables are not just policy choices. They are investments in a more innovative and equitable future. We also see clear value in bringing the women, peace, and security agenda into discussions on digital governance. As technology increasingly shapes how we communicate, govern, and resolve conflicts, women's leadership is more important than ever. Their inclusion helps ensure that technological progress strengthens our societies rather than deepening existing divides. Mr. Chair, in Suriname, we are taking steps, however modest, to move in the right direction. We are working to expand digital literacy, particularly among young women and girls, including those in more remote communities. We are promoting awareness around online safety and encouraging greater participation of women in education, especially in science and technology. These efforts are still evolving, but they reflect our commitment to ensuring that no one is left behind in the digital age. We also recognize that we cannot do this alone. Partnerships with civil society, academia, the private sector, and international organizations are essential. Together, we can build systems that are not only innovative, but also inclusive and grounded in respect for human rights. In closing, Mr. Chair, Suriname remains committed to working with all partners in this shared endeavor, because when women and girls thrive, our societies as a whole become stronger, more resilient, and more just. I thank you, Mr. Chair.
Muchas gracias, Surinam.
Thank you, Suriname. I now give the floor to Dominica.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Excellencies, Assistant Secretary General, distinguished representatives, colleagues, the permanent mission of the Commonwealth of Dominica is honored to join the other missions in commemorating International Women's Day under the theme, Women in the Digital Transformation of the Americas. Digital transformation is shaping how we learn, work, govern, and connect. For small island developing states like Dominica, it is not a luxury. It is essential to resilience, economic opportunity, and sustainable development. Yet, as our hemisphere advances technologically, we must ensure that women and girls are not left behind. Across the Americas, women remain less likely to access reliable internet, to pursue careers in STEM, and are more likely to experience online harassment and digital violence. If we do not act deliberately, the digital sphere risks replicating and even amplifying existing inequalities. Dominica is committed to a people-centered, gender-responsive digital transition. In rebuilding and strengthening our ICT infrastructure, we have prioritized expanding connectivity to rural communities and increasing digital literacy, particularly for women and girls. Through training programs and partnerships, we are supporting women entrepreneurs to leverage e-commerce, digital finance, and online marketing to expand their businesses beyond our shores. Education is central to these efforts. By integrating digital tools in classrooms and encouraging girls participating in science and technology, we are working to break down stereotypes and open pathways to leadership in innovation and digital governance. We also recognize that access alone is not enough. Digital spaces must be safe. Dominica supports strengthening regional cooperation to address technology-facilitated gender-based violence, improve data protection, and promote policies to safeguard women's digital rights. We commend the continued leadership of the Inter-American Commission of Women in advancing gender equalities within inter-American systems and in ensuring that digital transformation reflects our shared commitments to human rights and non-discrimination. Excellencies, digital transformation is ultimately about inclusion and power, who participates, who leads, and who benefits. Women must not only be users of technology, they must be designers, decision makers, innovators, shaping the digital future of our hemisphere. As Dominica advances its vision of resilience and sustainable development, we reaffirm our commitment to closing the gender-digital divide, supporting women-led innovation, and ensuring that every woman and girl can access, shape, and benefit our digital age. An inclusive digital America is not only possible, but is necessary. When women thrive in digital space, our economies grow stronger, our democracies deepen, and our societies become more just. I thank you.
Muchas gracias, Dominica, por su...
Thank you, Dominica, for that statement. I now give the floor to Honduras. Thank you very much, sir, Chair of the Permanent Council, Madam Assistant Secretary General, Executive Secretary of the Inter-American Commission on Women, permanent representatives, permanent observers, delegates. The permanent mission of Honduras joins in this commemoration of the International Day of Women and Digital Transformation in the Americas. At the same time, we'd like to express our gratitude to the missions that proposed this special session, and we'd like to thank the panelists for their very interesting presentation. We recognize that the progress achieved in promoting women's rights and the progress achieved in this area, but we're aware that there are still structural gaps. And these gaps require our attention urgently in order to empower women, especially in digital transformation, and to guarantee full and effective participation of women under equal conditions. Women's leadership in Honduras is making progress as a driver of social, political, and economic transformation. However, there are still structural challenges that need to be overcome in order to consolidate parity in the area of decision-making. Despite these barriers, women are leading initiatives in entrepreneurship, research, with special attention for rural communities. In the area of digital rights, women in Honduras are grappling with critical issues such as digital violence, which currently impacts 58% of women and girls, and this is one of the main concerns. And thus, we seek to promote the creation of safe environments, protection of privacy, and criminal definition of digital violence. In Honduras, we created a special committee to address violence against women. We also, through the Secretariat of Human Rights, and in conjunction with other public bodies and organizations that defend women's rights, we reactivated the Interinstitutional Commission for follow-up on violent deaths of women and femicide. The goal here was to strengthen justice and combat impunity. Honduras would like to reaffirm its commitment and spirit of cooperation with the various bodies, treaties, and special procedures in this area so that we can make headway in the full participation of women in the area of digital transformation. We reiterate our decision to prioritize human dignity and guarantee that social justice would not be a privilege, but rather a right for all men and women. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Honduras. Haiti? Thank you, sir. Mr. Vice Chair, Madam Assistant Secretary General, ladies and gentlemen, permanent representative, colleagues, ambassadors. We commemorate this morning the International Day of Women, and we do so around the topic of women and digital transformation. I should like to take this opportunity to commend the presence amongst us of the Assistant Secretary General, Madame Laura Gilles. Indeed, she is the first woman to occupy this post in our hemispheric organization. Most of those who have spoken before me have underscored the importance of promoting women's inclusion in the digital transformation. Others also underscored the need to protect women and girls against all of the violence against them online. This is an imperative. Women are a victim of digital violence, specifically through blackmail, harassment, and cyber harassment. Fighting cybercrime is a collective task, and it's one which the region as a whole should take on. And we also attach great importance to including women and girls in access to the digital transformation. What we need is a regional policy to support national policies for equality of access to digital equality, social inclusion, and to support regional policies so that women, generally speaking, would be socially integrated in all forms. Sir, Madam Assistant Secretary General, When we reference social inclusion and women's policy, let me reaffirm Haiti's commitment to make gender equality a major national priority for our policies. We're aware that gender equality is fundamental to democracy, and therefore we have put in place an appropriate normative framework in order to promote women's participation in the country's political life. Haitian normative texts that govern this area emphasize the issue of quota of 30% of women at all levels of national life. This is a constitutional obligation, and the goal is to promote equitable participation of women in national governance. By way of incentives, my government has committed to supporting political parties with more than 50% of women represented in their candidates. And this is done through financial incentives using public funding. May I conclude, sir, by paying a well-deserved tribute to all women who are committed to transforming national life in Haiti. They will see themselves here. They will because they were present in the Republic as Prime Minister, Minister of Justice, Minister of Culture, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Minister of Planning. These are women who are heads of political parties, journalists, teachers, and these are women that we call in our local language, Haitian language, les Madon Sara. These are the small business women, small farmers who bear the burden of the Haitian economy on their shoulders. And to them, we would like to express our deepest gratitude. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Haiti. And now I give the floor to the permanent observers, starting with Spain. Thank you, sir. As every March, the government of Spain shows its firm commitment to effective, real equity between men and women, with the eradication of all forms of violence against women and girls, and with a guarantee of their full autonomy. This 8th of March, we are commemorating women in an international context marked by the persistence of inequalities between men and women, marked by losing some rights in some countries, and by the especially serious impact of conflict, armed conflict, on women, continues to have on women and girls. Spain is at the ranks fourth amongst member states of the European Union, according to the European Index of Gender Equality. And this is due to the fact that Spain, throughout our decades of democracy, built a sound and recognized legal framework for equality between men and women. This path has made it possible to consolidate rights and put gender equality at the center of public action. It's inseparable from our model of democratic coexistence. Spain has made progress towards equality above and beyond the European Union as a whole. Here we'd like to highlight progress in the area of decision-making, public policies geared to guaranteeing more balanced participation of men and women. Spain maintains its firm commitment to the main international instruments for protecting women's rights. Spain promotes consistent foreign policy in keeping with those principles. An example of that would be the recently approved strategy of women's policy within our strong feminist foreign policy. Also, Madrid, we were welcoming in June the 5th conference on feminist foreign policy. Spain trusts in the Inter-American Commission on Women, and we support it, especially in the area of democracy. Amongst other actions, which are examples of this cooperation, the courses for electoral candidates and support for the model law on parity, which is inter-American. We also have the recovery of the historical memory with 2 publications of ancestors and the registers, which along with the portrayal of heroines, This provides visibility and recognition to women in the Americas. In that regard, I'd like to share the most recent project, which in the hands of the Assistant Secretary General and the Inter-American Commission on Women, and with the involvement of the Colon Library head, to whom I'd like to thank. On the 12th of March, the Colon Library will open a collection on women authors, which is included in this project on recognition and visibility of women. In the context of this session on women in digital transformation in the Americas, I'd like to recall here the recent signing of a memorandum with the National Institute of Cybersecurity in Spain with the Inter-American Commission of Women. This memorandum is to reinforce cybersecurity of women in the digital environment and to promote ethical governance of artificial intelligence, which often masks the blind spots of algorithms which tend to amplify differences and violence against women and girls. I'd also like to invite you to become familiar with the national campaign launched by the government of Spain around the topic of women of high value. We don't need your validation. That's the topic. Finally, I'd like to recognize the unavoidable importance of the feminist movement who have made transformation in our society and democracy one of their pivotal pillars. Thank you. Thank you. I now give the floor to the Holy See. Thank you, sir. The delegation of the Holy See is pleased to be convened by this special session to commemorate the International Day of Women. In thinking about the role of women and digital transformation in the Americas, we think it's necessary to highlight their dignity and equality granted by God and the important role of women in building society. The Pope Leon XIV said, and I quote, "Doubly poor are those women who suffer in situations of exclusion, ill treatment, or violence, because frequently they find themselves with fewer possibilities to defend their rights," end quote. This becomes particularly important in contemporary times where we see a rapid process of digital transformation underway, where artificial intelligence is marking the beginning of a new stage or chapter for society as a whole. From that point of view, the Holy See believes that digital transformation in the Americas should be supported by appropriate legal frameworks with international cooperation and education on the responsible and safe use of technology. Integral education that promotes both technical competency and ethical training would make it possible for technology to truly be at the service of the common good and at the service of the growth of each person, man or woman, while respecting his or her dignity. Sir, the Holy See would highlight that the contribution of women is necessary in all decisions for social life. We also recognize women's importance in digital transformation. At the same time, we hope that growth and innovation in science and technology can be supported by greater equality and social inclusion for the benefit of women. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your statement. I now give the floor to France. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. France, like 8 March, is very happy to join in the celebration of the International Day of Women organized by the Organization of American States. And we're pleased to reaffirm that with the same fervor our commitment for equality and fighting all forms of discrimination against women. Because equality between men and women is not just a social ambition, it is the very condition of a living democracy and sustainable development. At the current pace, according to UN Women, we'd need almost 300 years in order to achieve gender equality. This figure alone reminds us of the path ahead. 3 centuries. That's a horizon that we can neither accept nor give to future generations. Given this, France was one of the first countries to craft feminist diplomatic policy and to make gender equality a priority in all areas of action, both at the European and international level. Climate, security, democratic governance, human rights, humanitarian action, economy, digital, education, and health. No sector, no partnership, no public policy can henceforth be thought about without that requirement of equality. To translate that political ambition into concrete results, France developed a strategy for feminist diplomacy around three main priorities that reaffirm the historical fight against violence, for the defense of reproductive rights, access to justice, or the promotion of education. It proposes to meet current challenges in the digital arena, climate change, and human development, and to do so through feminist diplomacy. Thus, we welcomed in Paris the fourth conference on feminist foreign policy, which brought together 31 states around a common declaration which refuses any loss of ground in the area of women's rights. We also mobilized more than 200 million euros around from several hundred feminist organizations in 75 countries, because it's women on the ground that concretely transform women's daily lives. And in the digital arena, we worked for equality of rights of women in order to support, for example, women's access to STEM and the establishment of model law for economic autonomy of women. But as you've all underscored today, equality is also taking place in a new space, the digital space, a space with immense opportunity but also increased risk of harassment, violence, and exclusion. And that's why the French presidency of the G7 will mobilize its peers around the technology, fighting cyber violence, and participation of women in the digital transition, cybersecurity, and inclusion of women in all sectors in the future. So many opportunities for growth and global residence in a context of demographic and economic slowdowns. This is also why France launched an initiative which I'd like to emphasize today, and that is the Laboratory for Women's Rights Online. This was launched by France in March 2024. There are two main priorities for our diplomacy in this initiative. First, regulation of the digital space and effective rights of women. This laboratory is both an international platform for exchanges and an incubator for concrete solutions to prevent and combat gender-based violence online. A number of innovative projects on a number of continents have already seen the light of day, such as a chatbot for assistance to victims with the Association of Brain Builders Initiative. Simple tools which are accessible and immediate. And this is how principles become real protection. And so I invite civil society, NGOs, and research institutes in the region to use this program and to respond to the second call for projects, which is open until the 21st of April of this year. Because digital transformation will not mean progress unless it's inclusive, and equality cannot be relegated to the margins of innovation. It should be the driving force of it. Investing in the rights of women means investing in more fair, resilient, and prosperous societies for everyone, men and women alike. Thank you. Thank you for that statement. I now give the floor to the Assistant Secretary General. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair, ambassadors, ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to all women in the hemisphere. I cannot commend or commemorate this special day without speaking about my role as ASG. I am the first woman to hold this position. It's the honor of a lifetime. But it would be dishonest of me to hide the fact that it was hard for me to celebrate this fact because it took 100 years to get here. Institutional progress cannot be measured by isolated events or individual milestones. My election is a historical correction, and we will not solve all of these problems with just one person. I welcome the day when it won't be news that a woman holds this position. We also need today to highlight another collective achievement. The OAS has achieved parity at even the highest levels of recruitment. As we can see in the Department of Human Resources report to the CAP, those numbers, those equal numbers, are the result of years of effort. We have the duty of parity, and now we must address an even greater challenge, which is inclusion. Throughout my professional life, I've often been the first woman to do something, and this does not automatically translate into influence. You don't have power just by sitting at the table. You have to participate in decision making. Women are not quotas or symbols. It is of no use to sit at the table if you don't have any responsibility or influence over results. Equality must be expressed in the very architecture of power. And I'd like to share with you today how I view that power at every level of our organization. There are cultural practices here that persist, a great deal of hierarchy and a focus more on control instead of guidance rather. And we see that this fragments our work. We are siloed. There is sometimes fear of change, which kills innovation and destroys team spirit and promotes silence. That does not allow our staff, male or female, to realize their full potential. That's why I have started a cultural transformation process in the areas that are part of my purview. Authority cannot be imposed. It must be built consistently. We need strong leadership that is accountable. Ultimate power is ultimately a weakness. A hierarchy must not become a tool of isolation. We need to work to build trust and a sense of co-responsibility. We need to make sure that our hierarchies do not silence us. Our differences must not divide us. They must enrich our work. We need a more horizontal and innovative culture in line with the values that we defend, a culture that allows us to dream. We have worked to achieve parity. Institutional consistency is what defines us, our ability to align values that we defend with practices in day-to-day life. Personally, I do not want my chapter in OAS history to be a mere anecdote. I don't just want to have been the first woman. I hope that the position of ASG allows me to work tirelessly and to promote values such as accountability and transparency. I hope that we can bring reforms to certain areas. I have with me a team that is filled with a sense of ambition and dynamism and a great deal of pride. The interpreter notes that the speaker has been cut off. Please, just 2 sentences more. Yes, of course. You have the floor again, madam. No sound for the speaker. I hope that in doing all of this, I will have achieved something even greater for women in the hemisphere. Gender should no longer be a relevant factor for the person holding this position. We should all be judged by the quality of our performance. I don't want gender to be a relevant criterion for this chapter in my life. I want to play a role in the transformation that this organization is clamoring for. That is my purpose. I wish you a very happy International Women's Day. Thank you very much.
Agradecemos.
Thank you very much to all delegations for their statements, and also to the Assistant Secretary General. You've all gone into great depth about today's theme. This has been a very productive day. We've spoken about gender equality and ongoing challenges in the area of full participation, leadership, and digital security for women, girls, and adolescents in our region. It was also an opportunity to reflect upon concrete commitments and new regional initiatives. I'd like to once again thank all panelists for their presentations and insights, which have offered us fresh perspectives on the challenges and opportunities facing women in digital environments and in science, technology, and innovation. Their experience and leadership are key to guide future actions and foster inclusive policies. Again, allow me to thank Bolivia, Brazil, Canada, Chile, Colombia, Costa Rica, Guatemala, Mexico, Panama, the Dominican Republic, and Uruguay. Their collaboration has been key in this session and commemoration. The presentations and remarks today will be incorporated into the minutes, and the points discussed today will continue to guide our work to build safe, inclusive digital ecosystems that respect human rights and to promote full and meaningful participation of women in all areas of public, political, economic, and technological life. I invite member states to consider some of the specific proposals that were presented to strengthen prevention of digital violence, expand access to justice, and actively promote women's leadership in digital transformation. May this session be a turning point for us to take action, strengthening regional cooperation and ensuring that no women are left behind. This commitment must be translated into tangible results that strengthen digital transformation and make it truly inclusive, safe, and based on a gender perspective. I'd like to thank once again all member states, over 30, who participated, and I also thank the Assistant Secretary General and the entire team. I would also like to thank the chair of the meeting, who had to step out momentarily. The session is hereby adjourned.